So yesterday, I was just a normal dude scrolling my phone in bed. Today, I'm a skeleton. A whole entire skeleton. No skin, no muscles, no anything. Just bones, baby. I got transmigrated to some medieval-looking world with zero explanation and zero preparation. But hey, at least I got a cool power, Undead Sovereign. Sounds absolutely badass, right? I can resurrect the dead and make skeleton minions. And when they evolve, I get stronger too. Future me is going to be so overpowered. So naturally, the first thing I did was find a grave, strike my most dramatic pose. Arms up, full Chinibu energy, and yell, "Rise, my servant." And it worked. A bony hand punched through the dirt and out crawled the saddest skeleton I've ever seen. Yellow bones, wobbly joints, looked like it'd collapse if you sneezed near it. I named him Skeleton Number 1. My first employee. My entire army. Then someone screamed behind me, "What are you doing to my father?" Some villager showed up with flowers to visit his dad's grave. And what did he see? Me, a skeleton, standing over his dad's freshly dug-up grave with his dad's corpse now walking around as my undead minion. Okay, I can see how this looks bad. I opened my arms in what I thought was a friendly gesture and tried to explain. My friend, this is all a misunderstanding. Your father called me here. I gave him new life, but here's the thing. I'm a skeleton. I don't have lips. I don't have a tongue. All this guy saw was a bone monster going clack, clack, clack with its jaw while spreading its arms like it was flexing. He thought I was taunting him. He went absolutely nuclear. Threw his flowers on the ground. Petals everywhere. Face turning red like a tomato about to explode. Now let me be real. I am currently the weakest thing alive. Or undead. Whatever. A slightly aggressive chihuahua could end my whole career right now. This angry village dude. He'd turn me into bone dust with one punch. So I did what any genius would do. I grabbed Skeleton Number 1 by the neck and held him up like a hostage. Sir, you don't want your father's head going on a separate adventure, do you? I even did the throat-cutting gesture across Number 1's neck with my finger bone. Very clear. Very cinematic. He understood that part. He stopped. For about 2 seconds. Then he got even more angry and charged at me like a freaking bull. Language barrier. We have a language barrier. BRO. I grabbed Number 1's neck and ran. Full speed. Maximum bone velocity. My leg bones were moving so fast, I probably left after images. Picture this sunset scene. One furious villager chasing a sprinting skeleton across a hillside, and the skeleton is carrying another skeleton by the neck. The carried skeleton is just flapping horizontally in the wind like a broken white flag, limbs flopping everywhere. Beautiful. Truly a moment of youth and vitality. This dude had infinite stamina apparently, because he would not stop chasing. My only advantage? Undead don't get tired. As long as my stamina bar is longer than his, I win this marathon. Then a dog jumped out of the bushes right in front of me. I tripped. Left foot caught right foot. My entire skeleton body went flying forward. I instinctively threw Number 1 ahead of me as a crash pad. Splat. Number 1 hit the ground and exploded into pieces. Just scattered bones everywhere. My only asset. My entire net worth. Shattered. The villager was 10 meters away and closing fast. I scrambled on all fours, scooping up bones like a maniac. Skull, got it. Ribs, got it. Leg bones, got it. Arm, where's the arm? Forget the arm. I hugged my pile of loose bones and scrambled into the forest like my afterlife depended on it, because it did. I squeezed through every tiny gap between trees, every low bush, every crack my skinny bone frame could fit through. Being a skeleton finally had an advantage. I'm aerodynamic and compact. The yelling behind me got quieter. Quieter. Gone. I collapsed against a tree and dumped my armful of bones on the ground. My soul fire was flickering like a candle in a hurricane. No wonder every novel says necromancer is a high-risk profession. I looked down at the pile of random bones at my feet. Skeleton Number 1 was now Skeleton Number Pile. I sighed and started my jigsaw puzzle. Day 1 as an Undead Sovereign, ladies and gentlemen. Truly off to a magnificent start. All right, time to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. Skull, click. Spine, snap, 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 one vertebra at a time. Ribs, left side, right side, don't mix them up. Pelvis, locked in. Legs attached. Number 1 stood up, missing his left arm, but hey, nobody's perfect. I walked around him doing a quality inspection. He can move. Good enough. Employee performance review. Passing. Now I needed to establish communication with my one and only subordinate. Start simple. Basic commands. I held out my hand. 5 finger bones, nice and neat. Come on, buddy. Shake. Number 1 tilted his head. His soul fire flickered like he was processing this on a potato-powered CPU. Then he moved. His hand went up, but not toward my hand. He reached behind his own head, grabbed it, and with a soft click, popped his own head off. Then he gently placed his skull into my outstretched hand like he was handing me a basketball. I stood there holding his head. His empty eye sockets stared up at me. My empty eye sockets stared down at him. For dark holes. Awkward silence. Deep in the forest. Midnight. I quietly put his head back on his neck. Perfect fit. Click. Okay. Head delivery ceremony. You pass orientation. I patted his forehead. Bone on bone. Nice clacking sound. Forget the training manual. We're going straight to field exercises. I grabbed a dead branch off the ground, snapped it in half, and took the longer piece. Felt decent. Good weight, good length. Caveman weapon acquired. Then I launched myself into the forest shadows. Here's the thing about being a skeleton. No heartbeat, no breathing, no body heat. The only sound I make is a tiny little click-click from my joints. In a dark forest at night, I'm basically invisible. I came back 30 seconds later holding a rabbit by the ears. Still kicking, still very much alive, and very upset about its situation. I held it out to number 1. End it. Quick and clean. Number 1 received the order. Soul fire flickered. Processing. Processing. He reached out with his bony fingers and poked the rabbit. Gently. Then poked it again. He was giving it a massage. The rabbit got annoyed and kicked his finger clean off his hand. I watched number 1 silently pick up his detached finger, plug it back in, and prepare for round 2 of bunny spa treatment. I sighed with my entire non-existent soul. Fine. Hands-on teaching it is. I grabbed his wrist, guided his hand around the rabbit's neck. Squeeze. Crack. Rabbit went limp. Done. I immediately focused on our soul link. A tiny wisp of energy floated out of the rabbit, passed through number 1, and reached my soul fire. And then, nothing. It was like dropping 1 drop of water into the Sahara Desert. Didn't even make a splash. That's IT. I started thinking hard. The efficiency is garbage. Maybe the energy source matters? Does it have to be undead creatures? Or humans? I can't just go around digging up graves and mugging people on the road forever. While I was deep in my existential crisis, I heard this click-click-click sound beside me. Number 1 had found himself a stick. And he was copying me. He was trying to hunt. On his own, mimicking my movements from earlier. Stiff legs, zero coordination, looking like a baby deer on ice skates. A squirrel ran past him. He chased it. Couldn't even touch its tail. Found a rabbit. Tried to pounce on it. Tripped over his own feet. Almost fell apart again. But this beautiful idiot didn't stop. He just kept swinging that stick at empty bushes. Over and over and over. No brain, no strategy, just pure dumb persistence. Then the universe decided to throw him a bone. Literally. A squirrel jumped from one tree toward another. Its arc through the air happened to end exactly where number 1 was blindly swinging his stick. Whack. The squirrel pinwheeled through the air, hit the ground, twitched twice, and died. Number 1 froze. His soul fire got brighter. He walked over, poked the squirrel with his stick. No response. Dead. He dropped the stick. Carefully picked up the squirrel with his one arm. Turned around. Walked toward me with slightly faster steps than before. He held out the squirrel and clacked his jaw at me. He was reporting his kill. Like a cat bringing you a dead bird. Employee of the month material right here. And that's when it hit. The soul link between us exploded with energy. 100 times more than the rabbit. 1,000 times purer. Messages flooded my mind. Skeleton number 1 broke through its limits. First independent hunt achieved. Evolution conditions met. I stared at the dead squirrel. Then at number 1. Then back at the squirrel. That's the secret. It's not about killing. It's not about absorbing energy. It's about BREAKTHROUGHS. Like a baby taking its first steps. Like a toddler saying their first word. Number 1 just did something for the first time on his own. He imitated. He learned. He succeeded independently. That, first time, is the key that unlocks evolution. And the threshold is incredibly low. I can engineer these breakthroughs. Design a tutorial system. Mass produce them. My soul fire was dancing like a bonfire at a rave. Evolve. Number one's bones started growing. Creaking, stretching, expanding. His whole frame got taller, bigger. When it stopped, he was half a head taller than me. Still missing his left arm. But in his right hand, a brand new weapon had appeared. A short sword made of bone. Blade and handle, one solid piece, same polished gleam as his skeleton. Skeleton number one evolved into a tier 1 skeleton soldier. I could feel the difference through our link. Stronger bones. Harder frame. More powerful soul. If that angry flower-carrying village dude showed up right now, number one could take him. Easily. I looked at my creation. My masterpiece. My first successful employee after a very rocky onboarding process. One thought crystallized in my skull. I need more number ones. An undead apocalypse plan is forming, ladies and gentlemen. And it starts right here, in this tiny little forest, with one skeleton, one dead squirrel, and unlimited ambition. The moment number one finished evolving, a wave of energy came rushing back through our soul link and slammed straight into my soul fire. My flickering little candle flame suddenly stabilized and got brighter. My bones got denser too. I flexed my finger bones. The clicking sound was deeper now, meatier. Before, I had the strength of one chihuahua. Now, 2 chihuahuas, maybe 2.5. Look, it's a tiny upgrade. But I can see the math here. One skeleton's breakthrough gave me this much feedback. What about 100? 1,000? We're talking exponential growth, baby. Compound interest, but for necromancy. But first things first, I need more raw materials. More bones. Can I go back to that village? Let me think. I dug up a man's father, turned him into a zombie puppet, used said zombie puppet as a hostage, then smashed him into pieces and ran away with the parts. You know, that bridge isn't just burned, it's been nuked from orbit. We are never going back there. I looked deeper into the forest instead. Ever since I got transmigrated, I'd felt this weird comfort in here. The air itself was feeding my soul fire, like a spa day for undead. I didn't dare go deep before because I was basically a walking chew toy. One slightly motivated forest creature, and I'd be done. But now I have number one. Tier 1 skeleton soldier. Bone sword wielding. Village man fighting capable. Number 1. Take point. He immediately marched ahead. His steps were way more solid now, one arm holding that bone sword in a proper combat stance. He actually looked cool. My boy grew up so fast. I followed behind at a safe distance. One skeleton up front as meat shield and scout, one skeleton in the back as commander. Sun Tzu would be proud. Probably. The forest got darker. Thick canopy blocking the moonlight, rotting leaves carpeting the ground. The air smelled like dirt and decay. I loved it. My soul fire was practically purring. Then number one stopped. He turned halfway, raised his sword slightly. Danger signal. Oh, we're doing tactical communication now? When did you learn that? I dropped low behind a tree. Everything went quiet. Just whined through leaves. Then I felt it. Eyes. Multiple sets. Green dots lit up in the darkness. 1 pair. 2 pairs. 3. 4. Wolves. 4 wolves surrounding us from different directions. Low growls, drool dripping from fangs, bodies pressed to the ground in attack position. Their target was number 1, standing right in the middle of the path. In their wolf brains, they were looking at a big, weird, bone-shaped chew toy. Easy prey. Oh boys, you have no idea. I stayed hidden. This was number 1's performance review. Show me what that evolution was worth. The first wolf lost patience. It launched itself at number 1's side, going for the leg bones. Classic takedown strategy. Number 1 didn't dodge. Didn't flinch. He just twisted his torso and brought that bone sword down in one clean overhead chop. Crack. The wolf's skull caved in mid-leap. It froze in the air for a split second, then dropped like a sack of rocks. Twitched twice. Dead. 1 hit. 1 kill. That's my boy. The other 3 wolves hit the brakes. Their green eyes went from dinner time to wait what? Number 1 didn't let them reconsider. He charged straight at the nearest wolf. It snarled and lunged at him with jaws wide open. Number 1 sidestepped at the last second and swept his sword sideways. Crack. Caught the wolf right in the front legs. It howled and crashed to the ground. Before it could even think about getting up, number 1 was already standing over it. Bone sword raised high and stabbed down through its neck. 2 down. The remaining 2 wolves finally figured out the situation. This bone thing is not a chew toy. This bone thing is a blender. They looked at each other and made the smartest decision of their wolf careers. Run. Don't let them escape. I sent the command through our soul link. Number 1 received it instantly and took off after one of the fleeing wolves. Here's the beautiful thing about undead. They don't get tired. Ever. The wolf was sprinting with everything it had, burning through its stamina. Number 1 just kept running at the same steady pace. Inevitable. Relentless. Like a skeleton-shaped Terminator. He caught up. Didn't bother with fancy moves this time. Just shoved his bone sword straight into the wolf's back from behind. Efficient. Professional. No complaints from HR. 3 down. 1 to go. I stepped out from behind my tree. The last wolf saw another skeleton appear and absolutely lost its mind. It bolted in the opposite direction. I didn't chase. Instead, I bent down, picked up a rock about the size of my fist, and weighed it. Calculated the wolf's speed. Its trajectory. The angle. Wound up. Full body rotation. Every ounce of my upgraded skeleton strength funneled into one throw. Whoosh. The rock sailed through the air in a perfect arc and nailed the wolf right in the back knee joint. Boom. The wolf screamed, its leg buckled, and it tumbled across the ground. It tried to get up, but that knee was done. Number 1 walked over casually, bone sword raised, and finished the job. 4 for 4. Flawless victory. Now here's where things got really exciting. I walked up to one of the wolf corpses and pressed my palm against it. I'd been wondering, can I make skeletons from animal bones? Power flowed out of my hand. The wolf's body shriveled up like a deflating balloon. Flesh dissolved, blood evaporated, and all that was left was a clean wolf skeleton. Then my power kicked in again. The wolf bones started twisting, reshaping, reorganizing. Bones grinding and clicking and snapping into new positions. And then a standard humanoid skeleton stood up from the ground. The wolf skeleton? Gone. Completely consumed and converted. So that's how it works. The original shape doesn't matter. Any bones will do. My power just recycles everything into standard issue humanoid skeletons. I immediately processed the other 3 wolf bodies the same way. For brand new baby skeletons stood around me, fresh off the assembly line. Employee numbers 2, 3, 4, and 5. A weird thought crossed my mind. Number 1 was originally made from that villager's father's bones. But after being transformed by my power, is it still his father's bones? It's like asking if ash is still wood. The material got consumed and rebuilt into something completely new. You know what? That's a philosophical rabbit hole I do not need right now. I've got a 5-skeleton squad. Number 1 is the evolved veteran with a bone sword. 2 through 5 are fresh recruits waiting for their training montage. Time to figure out how to get these rookies their first breakthroughs. The Undead Army assembly line is open for business. For shiny new skeletons standing in a row. 2, 3, 4, 5. Fresh off the Wolfbone assembly line, yellow and brand new. Together with number 1, I now have a 5-skeleton squad. Time to replicate success. The formula is simple. Guide them to their first independent kill, trigger the breakthrough, then evolve. I figured out the system. I cracked the code. This is going to be so easy. I picked up a nice stick, walked over to number 2, and shoved it into his hand. Then I pointed dramatically at an empty clearing and delivered what I believed was the most inspiring speech in undead history. Go forth, brave warrior. Hunt. This is the finest sword in our village. Number 2 tilted his head. Soul fire flickering. Processing. Processing. Then he moved. He spun around, raised the stick high, and smashed it straight down on number 3's skull. 3's head popped clean off, launched into the air in a perfect arc, bounced twice, and rolled right up to my feet. 3's headless body wobbled there like a confused mannequin, arms swinging uselessly. 2 just stood frozen in his follow-through pose, apparently confused why his prey lost its head so easily. Dead silence in the forest. I looked down. 3's skull was staring up at me from the ground. 4 empty eye sockets meeting once again. This is becoming a tradition. I sighed, picked up 3's head with 2 fingers like it was a dirty sock, walked over to his body, and carefully clicked it back into place. Click. Experiment. Failed. Okay. Debrief time. What went wrong? Hunting is too abstract for a newborn skeleton. 2 had no idea what a prey animal even is. He just heard, hit something, and picked the nearest available target, which happened to be 3's head. Verbal instructions are useless. These guys have the IQ of a brick. I need visual learning. New plan. I sent one simple command through the soul link to all 4 rookies. Watch number 1. 4 skulls tilted simultaneously, then turned toward number 1 in perfect sync. Creepy, but effective. Then I told number 1. Demonstrate. Hunting. Number 1's soul fire flickered once, understood, and marched into the forest. The 4 rookies followed in a single file line behind him, stiffly copying his every step. It looked like the world's most disturbing kindergarten field trip. One tall skeleton teacher leading 4 wobbly skeleton toddlers through morning exercises. Half an hour of searching later, number 1 found the target. 6 rabbits munching on grass roots in a bush. Number 1 turned to face his 4 students, clacked his jaw once, pay attention, and attacked. He dove into the bush with surgical precision, slapped one rabbit flying with the flat of his sword, injured but alive. Then he sliced the hind legs off 4 more rabbits. Quick, clean, professional. The 6th rabbit? He cut it clean in half, picked up the dead one, and walked back to the class. He'd just set up a training ground. 5 crippled rabbits flopping around on the ground, unable to run. Practice targets. Difficulty level, tutorial mode. Number 1 dropped his dead rabbit on the ground and pointed his sword at the squirming ones. Class dismissed. Go practice. The 4 rookies charged in with their sticks. And oh my god, it was painful to watch. 2 swung so hard, he missed completely and almost tripped over his own feet. 3 stabbed at a rabbit, missed by a mile, and jammed his stick into the dirt so hard it almost snapped. 4 and 5 chased the same rabbit, crashed into each other, and scattered bone pieces everywhere with a loud clatter. But this time the mission was simple enough even for skeleton brains. Make the floppy thing stop flopping. Hit it with stick. That's it. They could understand that. The chase continued, sticks swinging wildly, bones rattling, rabbits flopping. Whack. 2 finally connected. Stick met rabbit skull. Rabbit twitched twice and stopped. Soul link explosion. Energy wave. Breakthrough confirmed. Then 3 got his kill. Then 4. Then 5. One after another, my beautiful idiots figured it out. All 4 of them came walking back to me, carrying their dead rabbits like proud cats with birds, and dropped them at my feet. Reporting for duty, sir. Mission complete, sir. 4 energy waves hit me simultaneously. My soul fire went from a campfire to a bonfire. Evolve. All of you. The command fired through 4 soul links at once. Their bones started growing, creaking, stretching. The yellow color bleached away into smooth, polished white. They got taller, bigger, meaner. When it stopped, all 4 were the same height as number 1, half a head taller than me. Unlike number 1, though, they had both arms. And on their left arms, little round shields made entirely of bone. Standard issue equipment. For brand new Tier 1 skeleton soldiers. The energy feedback from 4 simultaneous evolutions hit me like a freight train. My soul fire went from a bonfire to something approaching a small furnace. My bones got heavier, denser. The clicking sound when I moved was deep and solid now. Power check. Before today, I had 1 chihuahua strength. After number 1's evolution, 2 chihuahuas. Now, 5 chihuahuas. I could fight an entire dog park. I looked at my squad. 5 Tier 1 skeleton soldiers standing in formation. A real unit. A real army. The skeleton mass production pipeline is operational. Beautiful. Now we snowball. Meanwhile, apparently I was causing a whole scene back at the village. So that flower guy, his name's Devant, burst into the local tavern looking like he'd been dragged through a pig pen backwards. Clothes shredded, face covered in sweat and mud. He slammed some copper coins on the bar, chugged half a beer in one breath, and dropped the bombshell. There's a skeleton mage in the dead bone forest. He even pulled out the arm bone I dropped when number 1 exploded mid-sprint. Evidence. He was waving my employees' spare parts around like a courtroom exhibit. But the old village chief? This guy was sharp. He picked up the arm bone, sniffed it like a wine sommelier, and said the most terrifyingly accurate thing anyone has ever said about me. That's not a skeleton mage. A skeleton mage is born at Tier 3. You'd be dead in seconds. Then what I s it? The old man's eyes went dark. An undead lord. The whole tavern lost its mind. People were like, that's a myth, and my grandpa's grandpa never saw one. But the chief shut everyone up and laid out my entire playbook like he'd been reading my diary. Undead lords have human intelligence. They start weak, but can convert the dead and evolve infinitely. They are an army. The grave digging was for materials. The threatening was self-defense. The running? That's because it's still weak. Excuse me, SIR. I feel very called out right now. Every single point was correct. This old man is dangerous. Then he hit them with the kill shot. We're the closest village to that forest. When it builds enough troops, who do you think it visits first? We're its grocery store. 10 minutes later, the entire village was packing up to evacuate to some place called Iron Fortress. Smart move, old man. Very smart move. I respect the hustle. But you're too late. Because back in MY world, things were going beautifully. I lined up my 5 Tier 1 skeleton soldiers for their first proper military drill. Attention. Count off from left to right. Clack. Number 1 sounded off, turning to the right. Clack. 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 Perfect. Wait. Clack. I froze. I have 5 soldiers. I heard 6 clacks. I whipped around and nearly jammed my finger bone into the nose hole of some random skeleton standing at the end of the line. Where the hell did you come from? This uninvited guest was clearly not one of mine. Dull bones, malnourished looking, no soul link. This was a wild skeleton. Just some feral bone boy who wandered over because he sensed a crowd of his own kind and decided to join the party. He tilted his head at my interrogation and clacked his jaw. Clack. Oh, so you're talking back now? I pointed at the intruder dramatically. I will not have unauthorized personnel in MY formation. Discipline is everything. Dismantle him. My 5 soldiers launched themselves at this poor guy like he owed them money. Bone swords and bone shields came crashing down before he could even blink. In 2 seconds flat, he was reduced to a pile of scattered parts. Soul fire extinguished. Employee terminated. Literally. I walked over to the bone pile and stared at it. Wait a minute. Can I recycle this? I reached out and used my undead revival ability on the pile of bones. The bones started moving, clicking back together, reassembling, standing up. But this time it wasn't the same crappy wild skeleton. The bones were smooth and polished. The soul fire was bright. And most importantly, a brand new soul link appeared in my mind. He was mine now. And his status? Tier 1 skeleton soldier. Are you kidding me? Free Tier 1 soldier? And no training required. I skipped the entire tutorial. No catching rabbits. No stick-swinging lessons. No accidental decapitation of co-workers. Just pick up wild skeletons, recycle them, and boom, instant upgraded soldier. I looked around at this forest. This dark, dead, beautiful forest full of wild skeletons just wandering around waiting to be recruited. My soul fire was burning so bright it could probably be seen from space. I threw my arm out in a dramatic sweep. All units, move out. We're recruiting. The skeleton army expansion plan just went from snowball to avalanche. 1 day passed, and I discovered something beautiful about forest life. Nobody cares about us. We're invisible. Wolves? Sure, a few dumb packs tried to use my boys as chew toys. They got dismantled and turned into new recruits. Natural selection working in MY favor. But everything else? Total indifference. A fat deer literally walked up to number 3, licked his bone, made a disgusted face, and walked away. We got taste tested and rejected. That's how irrelevant we are to the food chain. We're not prey. We're not predators. We're just walking furniture. And I realized, why am I wasting time hunting rabbits? The Squirrel Union is probably filing restraining orders against me by now. I have a way better business model. I call it armed parade fishing. See, my squad of skeleton soldiers acts like a giant. Come join US. Signal beacon for every dumb wild skeleton in this forest. We just walk around and they crawl out of the dirt, out of tree holes, out of leaf piles, drawn to us like moths to a bone-colored flame. They waddle up behind our formation, all innocent and curious. Then I wave my hand. My boys rush in. Swords and shields go crash-bang wallop. Wild skeleton becomes a pile of parts. I walk over, hit it with my recycling ability, and ding, brand new Tier 1 soldier, no training required. 2 days of this, and I had 100 skeletons. Time for proper military discipline. I climbed up on a big rock, puffed out my non-existent chest, and gave my first real command to 100 troops. Attention. Form a square. A square. You know what a square is, right? Some went left. Some spun in circles. 2 of them started hugging each other and examining each other's bones like they were conducting a scientific study on skeletal anatomy. Stop. Stop it. My soul fire was having palpitations. Okay, combat training. Attack the trees around you. Swing your weapons at the trees. Whack, crack, clang. Not a single hit landed on a tree. Every swing connected with a coworker. Dozens of my guys got shattered by their own enthusiastic teammates. They were lining up for me to reassemble them like broken toys at a repair shop. This isn't an army. This is a psychiatric ward. Out of 100 employees, only the original 6 are Tier 1. The other 94 have the combat ability of angry chihuahuas. They all need to evolve. But hunting rabbits for 94 individual first kills? The local rodent population would go extinct and the Forest Wildlife Protection Agency would put a bounty on my skull, which is literally all of me. New plan, internal training. I pulled number 1 and number 6 to the front. You two, demonstrate sparring. Gently. Don't actually wreck each other. 1 drew his sword. 6 raised his shield. They started trading blows. Clink, clink, clang. Proper technique. Controlled movements. A beautiful display of Tier 1 combat form. 94 pairs of empty eye sockets watched with soul fires blazing bright. They understood. Or they thought they understood. Because what happened next was absolute pandemonium. Number 78 and 79, standing next to each other, simultaneously raised their sticks and smashed each other in the face. Chain reaction. Instant. The entire clearing erupted into a massive skeleton battle royale. Every skeleton grabbed the nearest partner and started beating the living death out of each other. Bones flying everywhere. Skulls rolling. Ribcages shattering. Stop. Everybody stop. I was jumping up and down on my rock like a maniac. 80+ skeletons were in an all-out brawl. One skeleton got its head knocked off, and the head rolled to another skeleton's feet, who picked it up and bowled it across the ground, knocking over 2 more like pins. This is a disaster. This is, ding. Number 82 clubbed number 95 so hard his entire ribcage exploded. Skull rolled away. Soul fire went out. Breakthrough conditions met. Energy feedback hit me through the soul link. My soul fire pulsed with warmth. I froze. Every skeleton froze. The whole world went on pause. 3 seconds of silence. Then my soul fire erupted. Of course, they don't need to hunt animals. They can fight each other. The losers become raw materials. The winners get their first kill breakthrough, and I get energy feedback from everyone who evolves. This isn't a psychiatric ward. This is a coliseum. I switched from panicking hospital director to excited fight commentator in exactly 0 seconds. Keep going. Don't stop. Yes. Number 8. Hit his left leg. His stance is weak. 37, you idiot. You don't have a weapon? Rip out one of your own ribs and slap him with it. Fight. Winners evolve. Losers become spare parts. The battlefield went absolutely feral. Bones crunching, skulls flying, soul fires flickering out left and right. The survivors who got their first kills? Evolution. One after another. 40+ brand new Tier 1 skeleton soldiers rose from the wreckage of their fallen classmates, glowing with fresh, polished bones, standing tall among the scattered remains of their opponents. And the real prizes? My original 6. Number 1's bone sword grew longer, with sharp bone spikes along the blade. Tier 2 skeleton swordsman. Number 2 sprouted a longbow made from spine and leg bones, plus a quiver of white bone arrows on his back. Tier 2 skeleton archer. 3 through 5 got thicker, heavier frames with beefed-up bone shields. Tier 2 skeleton soldiers. And number 6? The most extra evolution of all. A complete warhorse materialized beneath him, assembled entirely from bone, and he swung up onto its back like a medieval cavalry unit. Tier 2 skeleton cavalry. I looked at my army. My beautiful, chaotic, terrifying army. Forged through the most insane team-building exercise in management history. Skeleton gladiator battles. That's my training program. I am the worst boss and the best general at the same time. First order of business after the gladiator tournament. Resurrect all the losers. I walk through the battlefield pressing my hand on every pile of broken bones. Click, click, click. Back together they go. One skeleton stood up, looked at his perfectly repaired chest, looked at the guy who just smashed him, and raised his stick to get revenge. Stop. I slammed a soul command on him so fast his stick froze midair. He looked at me all confused like, but boss, he started it. But here's the beautiful part. They keep their memories. Every fight, every hit they took, every move they learned. It's all still in there. Death is just a minor inconvenience. A timeout. A quick nap. Half a day later, all 100 skeletons were fully evolved to Tier 1, standing in neat rows in the forest clearing. An actual army. I'm not that pathetic skeleton who got chased by a flower-carrying villager anymore. I'm basically a village chief now. A warlord. A company-level commander. We're big time now, boys. 100 soldiers. That's a whole company back on Earth. Time to organize. I pulled out my 6 elite Tier 2 units. 1 in 6. Take 50 soldiers. Keep expanding into the forest. Recruit more. 2 through 5. Take the other 50. You're with me. We're building a base. Skeletons don't need houses. But I need a headquarters. A symbol. The birthplace of my undead civilization. Yeah, that dream lasted about 15 minutes. Because commanding skeletons to fight is one thing. Commanding them to do construction? That's a whole different category of nightmare. Dig a foundation. 3 skeletons long, 10 skeletons wide. Go. 10 skeletons grab their bones, swords, and shields, using them as shovels. Digging away. Great efficiency. This is going to work. Then one skeleton got so into digging that he dove headfirst into the hole. Just buried himself. All I could see were 2 feet kicking in the air. The skeleton next to him saw his buddy disappear into the dirt. Did he pull him out? No. He started filling the hole back in. Even patted the dirt down with his shield to pack it nice and tight. You idiot. I told you to dig, not bury yourself. And you're supposed to rescue him, not give him a funeral. I rushed over and yanked the buried skeleton out by his ankles. He shook the dirt off his skull like a wet dog and immediately went back to digging like absolutely nothing happened. Meanwhile, the logging team. 20 skeletons cutting trees. Even worse. They had zero concept of cut from the base, just hacking randomly at the middle of tree trunks. One genius decided ground-level chopping was too boring, so he climbed a tree, sat on a branch, and started chopping the branch he was sitting on. What are you doing? Get down from. Crack. Branch snapped. Skeleton and half a tree crashed to the ground. Instant disassembly. His co-workers gathered around the bone pile, watched him reassemble, shrugged, and went back to random chopping. My soul fire was practically boiling. But the construction crew? The absolute heavyweight champions of stupidity. 20 skeletons hauling logs to build the frame. There were still skeletons climbing out of the foundation pit when the hauling crew showed up with massive logs and just dropped them straight in. Boom. Bone-crunching sounds from below. Stop. There are people down there. I sprinted over. The guys haven't climbed out yet, and you're throwing logs on them? Are you trying to commit murder? The skeleton who dropped the log tilted his head, pointed at the pit, then pointed at the log pile, soul fire blinking innocently. His whole vibe was, "Isn't this what you asked me to do?" I was running back and forth across the construction site like a stressed-out foreman whose entire crew shares one brain cell. And that brain cell was on vacation. I finally understood why every novel says undead apocalypses leave nothing but ruins. It's not because the undead destroy everything. It's because they can't build anything without demolishing it in the process. Then my danger sense went off. I spun around. A massive tree that had been hacked to pieces was creaking, groaning, and falling directly at me. OSH, I bolted. Thanks to 100 Tier 1 and 6 Tier 2 evolution feedbacks, I'm Tier 1 myself now. I'm fast. Boom. The tree slammed into exactly where I'd been standing. Ground shook. I turned around, soul fire blazing with rage. Who did that? Number 2 silently raised a bony finger and pointed at a skeleton who was currently a pile of scattered parts next to the fallen tree. The tree had crushed him too. Self-inflicted karma. I stomped over, resurrected the idiot, and without a single word, picked him up and threw him into the foundation pit. Then I grabbed a shovel's worth of dirt and buried him up to the neck, just his skull poking out. You stay there until tomorrow. You hear me? His soul fire blinked twice. A tiny, sad little clack came from his jaw. Pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. I almost felt bad. Almost. I called every single tree-cutting skeleton over and pointed at an intact tree. Watch. And learn. Step 1. Cut a notch on the side you want it to fall. Step 2. Cut a wedge above it. Step 3. Cut from the opposite side. And when it starts leaning, run away. I demonstrated the whole thing perfectly. Then I pointed at the buried skeleton's sad little skull poking out of the dirt. Next one who drops a tree on me becomes a permanent foundation pillar. We clear. 99 soul fires flickered nervously. We clear. Meanwhile, in a part of the world I knew absolutely nothing about. The villagers of Deadbone Village, my former neighbors, the ones whose cemetery I may have slightly vandalized, were dragging themselves across the wasteland in a long, miserable line, heading for Iron Fortress. Running from me, apparently. The old village chief was leading from the front, promising they'd reach Iron Fortress in 2 days. The guy was sharp as a knife. He'd figured out exactly what I was after one second-hand report. Respect. Then dust appeared on the horizon. Cavalry. Riders approaching. And wouldn't you know it, one of them was Hams, a kid from Deadbone Village who'd left years ago to become a militiaman at Iron Fortress. The villagers went wild. Exhausted faces lit up like lanterns. Devant, my old friend the flower guy, still alive at this point, was waving his arms, shouting greetings. Salvation had arrived. Their own village boy, riding with knights. But the old chief saw what nobody else did. Those weren't Iron Fortress knights. That armor, those banners, they belonged to the Lost Arn Holy Theocracy, a foreign religious nation. They had no business being this deep inside Imperial territory, and they were riding alongside Hams. The chief's blood went cold. He tried to stop the villagers from rushing forward, but they were already running toward the cavalry with the desperation of drowning people grabbing a lifeline. The old man did the only thing he could. He slipped backward through the crowd like a shadow, disappeared into the roadside bushes, and started running back toward the village. He had to warn the other half, who'd stayed behind. At the front of the cavalry, a paladin named Sir Kyle watched the villagers swarm toward him with a merciful smile on his face. His shining armor gleamed like a saint walking among mortals. He leaned over and whispered something to Hams. Hams gripped his reins so tight his knuckles went white. His horse stamped nervously. Every rider except Hams reached for their longbows in perfect unison. Arrows knocked. Strings drawn. Wait. What are you? The smile never left Devant's face. For one frozen heartbeat, he saw golden chaff floating in sunlight over his father's wheat field. His father, whose grave I dug up just days ago. Beautiful and warm and far away. Then the arrows fell like metal rain. The screams lasted seconds. Then silence. Devant looked down at the arrow punched clean through his chest. Looked up at Hams, his old neighbor, his childhood friend, sitting rigid on his horse like a stone statue. Why? A second arrow took everything else away. Sir Kyle surveyed his masterpiece with unchanged compassion, as if the bodies bleeding into the dirt were autumn leaves, not people. He patted Hams on the shoulder gently. Don't feel guilty. This is for the Empire. For your future. Their deaths have value. The cavalry dismounted and began their real work. They stripped clothes off the dead and dressed them in uniforms bearing the Theocracy's insignia. Dropped rusty weapons beside the bodies. Sloppy work. Deliberately sloppy. This was a false flag operation. Make it look like the Holy Theocracy attacked Imperial citizens. A crude lie, but an effective one. Hams was forced to help. He couldn't look at the faces. People he'd grown up with. Shared drinks with. Then he saw her. A little girl who used to chase him around begging for candy. He vomited against his horse. First time's always rough, Sir Kyle said behind him, voice smooth as silk. You'll get used to it. After this, you'll be a real knight. Hams wiped his mouth. Nodded. Sir, the mission is complete. Can we head back now? Kyle laughed softly, shaking his head like a teacher correcting a child. Back? No, not yet. We need to visit Deadbone Village. Burn every house. Kill everything breathing. A massacre needs to be thorough to spark real outrage. We need a story so horrifying that every citizen in Iron Fortress, every person in the Empire, will be screaming for war against the Theocracy. Hams's fist clenched, then slowly unclenched. He'd known since the moment he said yes to Sir Kyle. There was no going back. Yes, sir. He turned his horse toward Deadbone Village. Behind them, the setting sun stretched their shadows long and ugly across blood-soaked earth. I was elbow-deep in construction chaos when I heard it. The most beautiful sound in the world. Synchronized clacking, marching in perfect rhythm from deep in the forest. Number 1 and Number 6 emerged from the treeline like returning war heroes. Behind them, not the 50 soldiers I sent out. 80, 30 brand new recruits, already evolved to Tier 1. Already carrying bones, swords, and shields. marching in formation like proper soldiers. Meanwhile, my construction crew was behind me, accidentally burying each other alive. The contrast was painful, but here's the real discovery. When I hit Tier 1, I apparently unlocked a new ability without even realizing it. I can delegate my undead revival power to one trusted subordinate. Only one slot for now, and I gave it to number 1, my firstborn, my employee of the century. So number 1 was out there in the forest, recycling wild skeletons on his own, and every single one still links directly back to me. My vassals are my vassals. Do you understand what this means? I can run 2 operations simultaneously: base construction and army expansion. While I'm here teaching idiots not to bury themselves, number 1 is out there snowballing the army. The future is bright, people. My mood did a complete 180. Even my construction disaster crew looked lovable now. I cleared my non-existent throat and started giving actually useful instructions this time. Foundation team, clear every root and rock. I want the ground flat. FLAT, stack stones at these 4 corners. Fill the gaps with mud. Pack it down. I pointed at a massive stone slab that 2 through 5 had hauled over. Use this as a hammer. Pound the ground until it's solid. Anyone who slacks off gets buried as a foundation pillar. With clear tools and clear methods, things actually started working. A dozen skeletons heaved the slab up and brought it crashing down. Boom, boom, boom. That actually looked like construction. Progress. Then I turned to the building crew. These 4 logs are the main pillars. Sharpen the bottoms. Jam them into the stone gaps. Straight. They must be straight. The skeletons started chopping with their bone swords. One genius sat down on the log and started hacking at the spot between his own legs. I'm now fully convinced their skulls are stuffed with cotton, not soulfire. After wrestling 4 wobbly pillars into position, I moved to crossbeams. Carve a notch at the top of each pillar. A groove. Then lay the crossbeam across and lash it with vines. Tight. Super tight. One skeleton heard, carve a notch, and went absolutely berserk on a support pillar. Chopped straight through the top. Clean cut. Then he proudly waved his bone sword at me like he deserved a medal. I wanted to disassemble him and use his bones as firewood. Instead, I took a deep breath of air I couldn't actually breathe and personally demonstrated mortise and tendon joinery to a skeleton. This is my life now. The frame went up. Wobbly, questionable, but standing. Walls next. Stack the logs horizontally. Alternating pattern. This end over that end. Then reverse. One skeleton found his log was too short. He tilted his head, thought about it, then detached his own shield and wedged it under the log as a shim. There. Level now. He patted his hands together, satisfied with his engineering solution. Another skeleton noticed his section was too high, so he pulled a log out of his neighbor's finished wall. Crash. Half a meter of carefully stacked wall collapsed into rubble. I put my face in my hands. I have no face. I have no hands that can cover a face. But the gesture was necessary. Roofing crew was somehow worse. Plan was simple. Layer of bark, layer of thatch, seal with mud. One skeleton climbed up to lay bark. A second skeleton didn't wait for him to finish and climbed up with a massive bundle of thatch, then dumped the entire thing on his coworker's head. The bark layer skeleton got angry, grabbed a piece of bark and threw it back. 2 skeletons, 5 meters up on the crossbeams, having a material fight. One throwing grass, one throwing bark. Back and forth like toddlers in a sandbox. Get down here right now. Mid-yell, the bark thrower slipped and fell. Splat. Pile of parts on the ground. After he reassembled, I pointed at the skeleton buried in the foundation pit, still just a sad skull poking out of the dirt. See him? Want to join him? The skeleton shook his head so fast his jaw almost flew off. Then work. Properly. I sent number 1 and 6 back out with 80 skeletons for more expansion, with orders to report back every other night. Clack. Both acknowledged and marched their army into the forest. Then I pulled numbers 2 through 5 aside. You 4. Stop carrying logs. You're promoted, for pairs of empty eye sockets locked onto me. You've been watching me work all day? You're smarter than these meatheads. From now on, you're safety officers. 2 and 3, supervise foundation and construction. 4 and 5, supervise logging and transport. I pointed at the rest of my idiot workforce. Your job is to do what I've been doing. Anyone who breaks protocol, anyone who tries to get creative, bury them next to our friend over there as a bone pillar. The four of them exchanged glances. Their soul fires flickered with something that might have been reluctance. This job was way harder than carrying stuff. But orders are orders. Clack. They split up and headed to their zones. Middle management established. I collapsed onto a rock and just went limp. Every bone in my body spread out flat. My soul felt completely hollowed out. I decided to sleep. Well, sleep. Undead don't actually need rest. But after discovering I have literally infinite lifespan, I picked up this habit of just turning my brain off and zoning out. Staring at nothing. Daydreaming. It's one of the few hobbies available when you're a skeleton who can't eat, can't drink, and can't scroll his phone anymore. Today was exhausting, and I don't even have muscles to be tired with. I woke up from my nap and the first thing I saw was a house. A house. Standing there in the valley like a drunk uncle at a family reunion. Crooked, questionable, but somehow still upright. The logs were stacked like a toddler played Jenga. The mud filling looked like someone sneezed it into the cracks. The thatched roof had the aesthetic of a dog's chew toy. The pointed top was leaning so hard it looked like it was trying to escape. I walked around it twice. Then I kicked the wall. Solid. Actually solid. These idiots accidentally built something sturdy. Wait. Someone had stuck little wildflowers into the wall gaps. Pink and red flowers, on an undead construction site. Like decorating a cemetery with birthday balloons. Which bonehead did that? I was complaining, but my soul fire was warm. Touched, even. Don't tell anyone. Numbers 2 through 5 marched over for their morning report. For Tier 2 skeletons standing at attention, looking professional as hell compared to the drooling newbies behind them still smearing mud on everything. A soul message came through. Report to the Sovereign. 0 safety incidents yesterday. Excellent. The safety officer system works. Best management decision of my entire undead career. Promoting those 4 was genius. I pointed at the ugly cute cabin and made my declaration. This is the standard. Build me 100 of these. The Undead Empire is officially founded today. Then I claim the first house as my palace. I'm the Sovereign, I get dibs. Obviously. First order of royal business. I need a bed. I picked out the fattest log, had some soldiers carve a body-shaped groove into it. Exact dimensions. I climbed in and laid down. Cold wood against cold bone. Perfection. This is undead romance. This is a coffin, and it's mine. For the throne room, I stood a fat tree stump on end and carved the top into a seat shape. Throne, complete. Placed some smaller stumps around it for my future ministers. No ministers yet, but a king needs to plan ahead. My palace was basically a cave with furniture made by someone who'd never seen furniture. But I loved it more than any mansion. I was about to sit on my throne and contemplate the future of my empire when I heard it, thundering bone steps from deep in the forest. Every skeleton on the construction site froze. Number 1 and number 6 burst from the tree lean at the head of a white bone tsunami. Not 80 soldiers anymore. 150. 70 new recruits, all Tier 1, all armed, all marching in perfect formation. My total army just hit 200. And right at that moment, as 70 new soul links flooded into my consciousness, something awakened inside me. A brand new power, rising from the depths of my soul. Naming. I could spend my own soul energy to give true names to my most elite subordinates, breaking through their limits and pushing them to an even higher evolution. 6 slots available. I knew exactly who deserved them. I assembled everyone. 200 skeletons packed into the clearing. Silent. Waiting. I climbed onto my throne, cleared my non-existent throat, and channeled my most dramatic sovereign energy. Today marks the founding of our undead empire. And today, we reward the worthy. I walk to my original 6. My founding members. My ride or die since day 1. From this day forth, you are nameless and no more. I pointed at number 1. You are my blade. Relentless in battle. You shall embody pride. I name you. Skull pride. Soul energy erupted from my finger and slammed into one's soul fire. His body exploded with change. Bone spikes burst from his sword, extending it by half a meter into a monstrous, jagged greatsword. His skeleton grew taller, sharper, with vicious bone thorns sprouting from every joint. A wave of bloodthirsty killing intent blasted outward. Tier 3 Skeleton Berserker. I felt dizzy. That naming drained way more energy than expected, but the fire in my eyes burned hotter. Number 2. You are my eagle eye. Seeing all, missing nothing. You shall be Envy. I name you. Skull Envy. Two's longbow stretched longer, sleeker. 3 arrows in his quiver began glowing with eerie blue light. Poison arrows. Tier 3 Venomous Archer. Number 3. You are my shield. Devouring all attacks. You shall be Gluttony. I name you. Skull Gluttony. 3's chest and ribs expanded outward. His bone shield ballooned into a massive wall of overlapping bone plates. He doubled in size, becoming a walking fortress. Tier 3 Giant Shield Skeleton. Number 4. You are cunning and creative. You shall wield magic. You are Lust. I name you. Skull Lust. This was my gamble. Energy flooded in and 4's soul fire compressed into a single point of deep purple. A twisted staff of black thorny wood materialized in his hand from thin air. Tier 3 Skeleton Mage. We have a caster now. I was running on fumes, but I pushed through. Number 5. You are the calculator. The organizer. You manage our empire's logistics. You are Greed. I name you. Skull Greed. 5's transformation was the most horrifying. Dark red muscle and sinew started growing over his bones. Flesh spreading across his entire frame. He went from skeleton to something with actual meat on him. Tier 3 Ghoul. Complete with a real body and the ability to command lower-ranked units. Last one. I turned to my cavalry unit, sitting tall on his bone horse. You are my iron hooves. The tip of every charge. You are Wrath. I name you. Skull Wrath. Violent red energy detonated. 6 and his horse roared silently at the sky. The energy fused rider and mount into one being. The horse's bones turned thick and black. A full set of dark bone plate armor materialized across 6's body. His sword transformed into a massive cavalry lance. Tier 3 Skeleton Knight. I stumbled backward and grabbed my throne for support. My soul felt like someone had scooped it out with a spoon. The naming ceremony had nearly emptied me. But I looked at my 6 generals, my 7 deadly sins -1, each one a Tier 3 powerhouse, and thought, absolutely worth it. Pride the Berserker, Envy the Poison Archer, Gluttony the Fortress, Lust the Mage, Greed the Ghoul Commander, Wrath the Black Knight. My skeleton kindergarten just graduated into a proper army with named officers. The Undead Empire isn't a joke anymore. I stood at the edge of my construction site, surveying my empire. 200 Tier 1 soldiers, 6 brand new Tier 3 generals, and me, freshly upgraded to Tier 2 Sovereign. I flexed my bone fingers. The power flowing through me was leagues beyond what I had before. If that angry Flower Village guy showed up now, the gap between us would be measured in light years. I still don't know how strong things get in this world, but worst case scenario, I can always run. The sneaky development phase is over. Time to show this forest who's boss. I turned to my 200 soldiers and unleashed my most dramatic war cry through the soul link. The whole village moves out. It's time to become the true masters of this forest. Clack, 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 clack. 200 skeletons marched in unison like a white-bone tsunami, crashing through the forest behind me. This wasn't a sneaky patrol anymore. This was conquest. Pride took point as our vanguard. A Tier 3 Berserker's aura alone made every small animal in 100 meters flatten themselves against the ground in terror. His greatsword was covered in barbed bone hooks now. Every swing literally screamed through the air. A massive wild boar charged out of the undergrowth, defending its territory. Brave. Stupid, but brave. Pride didn't even turn around. Just swung backwards. Splash. Cut the boar clean in half. Hundreds of pounds of pork, split like butter. Guts everywhere. Pride didn't even glance at it. Just kept walking. Like swatting a fly. I established one rule for the campaign. No killing babies. No killing small animals. This isn't cruelty. This is sustainable resource management. I need this ecosystem alive so it keeps producing materials for me. I'm a responsible undead sovereign. Everything that attacked us, though, instant recycling into new soldiers. And the wild skeletons? Greed had it down to a science now. The moment we spotted one, he'd silently direct a squad to surround it, dismantle it, and Pride would resurrect it as our soldier. No commands needed from me. The system ran itself. Half a day, 300 soldiers. The snowball was becoming an avalanche. Then Envy stopped. His Tier 3 eyes, capable of reading leaf veins from 100 meters, locked onto something ahead. A cave. and in front of it, 30-plus Tier 1 skeleton soldiers in a defensive formation. Not wild wanderers. Organized. Formation meant a commander. A commander meant something strong inside. Pride. I waved my hand forward. Pride charged in alone. What followed was less a battle and more a blender demonstration. Against a Tier 3 berserker, Tier 1 soldiers were tissue paper. His greatsword sent bone fragments flying like confetti with every swing. 30 guards, reduced to scattered parts in under a minute. I walked up and recycled them all. 30 new soldiers. Thanks for the donation. Gluttony, take 80 soldiers. Scout the cave. I wasn't about to get cocky. The easy win outside could be bait. Gluttony slammed his door-sized shield on the ground. Boom, and led 80 soldiers into the darkness. 1 minute. 2 minutes. Silence. Then his soul message, Sovereign. Only one skeleton inside. My soul fire jumped. One skeleton commanding 30-plus guards? This was a big fish. Pride, wrath, envy, lust with me. Everyone else. Hold position. The cave was thick with magical energy and a faint rotting smell. Strange glowing runes were carved into the walls. Couldn't read any of them, but they looked important. At the very back, in a wide stone chamber, I found it. A dark gray skeleton with purple soul fire burning in its eye sockets. A Tier 3 skeleton mage. At its feet was a magic circle made from dozens of different animal bones. It was mid-experiment, dissolving and reshaping a wolf skull with purple energy. Now that's interesting. I wasn't scared. I was excited. This was a technical specialist. A researcher. An R&D department. The mage spotted us and didn't waste time on introductions. Purple fire contracted, and it fired a barrage of shadow arrows straight at us. Gluttony stepped forward with a roar, slamming his giant shield in front of everyone. Bang, 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 bang. Shadow arrows exploded against the shield like fireworks. Not a scratch. Then Gluttony's shield did something new. All that absorbed energy collected into a single point and detonated outward. Devour counter. A visible shockwave blasted through the chamber, throwing dust into the air and staggering the mage mid-cast. Wrath exploded forward on his bone horse like a black lightning bolt, lance aimed straight at the mage's chest. Pride leaped into the air behind him, greatsword coming down with apocalyptic force. From the cave entrance, Envy had already drawn his bow. His blue soul fire tracked the mage's flickering core. A poison arrow sliced through the darkness without a sound. And Lust? Well, the cave was cramped. There were friendlies everywhere, and he couldn't really cast spells without hitting our own guys. But he couldn't let me think he was useless, so he just walked around with his staff, looking for an opening, and bonked the enemy mage on the head whenever he got close enough. Staff bonk. The most dignified contribution to a boss fight. The mage tried desperately to defend, conjured a bone shield to block Wrath's charge, cast an illusion to confuse Pride's slash. Crack. Wrath's lance punched straight through the hastily formed bone shield like cardboard. Pride ignored the illusion completely, pure combat instinct, and his greatsword cleaved into the mage's left shoulder, nearly splitting it in half. But the killing blow was Envy's. His poisoned arrow threaded through every gap in the mage's defenses and struck the purple soul fire dead center. Sizzle. The mage shrieked, soul fire flickering wildly, and crashed to the ground. Fight over. Team comp works, baby. I walked up, pressed my hand on the mage's broken skull, and activated Undead Revival. Moments later, a brand new Tier 3 skeleton mage knelt before me. Purple fire burning with absolute loyalty. I assigned it under Lust's command. Mage managing mage. Professional synergy. Do you remember anything? About this world? About yourself? The mage's response through the soul link was blank. Empty. Total amnesia. All its memories got wiped during the death and revival process. It still knew how to cast magic, but everything else, its history, its purpose, its enemies, completely formatted. Memory wipe, huh? Good news, guaranteed loyalty. Bad news, zero intelligence value. I shrugged. Whatever. Doesn't matter if you're pretty or ugly. If you work, you work. But this encounter raised my alert level. If a random cave in the deep forest had a Tier 3 mage, what else is hiding out there? What's outside the forest? Time for a full sweep. All units. This cave is our new forward base. Spread out in every direction. Recruit every wild skeleton. Eliminate every threat. I want this entire forest speaking one language. OURS. 2 days of total war followed. My undead net swept across the forest like a flood. Monster dens, beast territories, scattered undead tribes, all crushed and absorbed. 500, 800, 1,000. When I assembled everyone again, I was looking at 1,200 Tier 1 skeleton soldiers. And then came the really juicy discovery. The soldiers who fought under different generals were evolving differently. Under pride, they became skeleton swordsmen. Under gluttony, tankier shields. Under envy, skeleton archers. The general's fighting style was shaping the evolution path. I ran an experiment immediately. Took a fresh newborn skeleton, assigned it to Wrath's cavalry division for one battle, then transferred it to Greed's construction crew right before evolution. Result? It didn't become a cavalry unit. Instead, its bones got denser, its hands got bigger. A builder skeleton. I can control their evolution paths. My soul fire went supernova. No more generic zombie horde. I can build specialized divisions. Swordsmen, archers, tanks, cavalry, builders, mages, a real professional army with roles and specializations. After the euphoria faded, reality set in. 1,200 soldiers. 6 generals. 1 very ugly base camp. We have the army. Now we need the infrastructure to match. Back at Deadbone Village, the old chief made it back. The absolute legend ran for days on almost no sleep. Covered in scratches, lips cracked and bleeding, looking like death warmed over. He burst into the village screaming, "Run! Iron Fortress is coming to slaughter us." The remaining dozen villagers stared at him like he'd lost his mind. "Wait, didn't you leave to join Iron Fortress? Where's everyone else you took with you?" The chief grabbed the nearest guy's arm, eyes bloodshot red. "No time to explain. They're coming." Nobody moved. The people who trusted him unconditionally already left with him last time. These were the skeptics, the stubborn ones. A woman holding her baby stepped forward. "You took half our village. Now you come back alone telling us to run again? How do we know you didn't sell them?" Every word hit the old man like a knife. He knew nothing he said would work. His credibility was gone. His people were dead. And the killers were riding this way right now. With his last shred of rational thought, he blurted out the craziest suggestion possible. "Into the forest. Go into Deadbone Forest." Everyone's jaw dropped. "Are you insane? There are undead in there." But the chief's logic was actually genius. Cavalry can't ride through dense forest. No sane person would expect villagers to flee into an undead zone, so the knights wouldn't look there. And most of the forest skeletons were just weak newborns, dangerous but not guaranteed death. The forest was, paradoxically, the safest place. But he couldn't explain any of this. Days of running, 0 sleep, the trauma of watching his people get massacred. His body finally gave out. His eyes rolled back, and he collapsed face first into the dirt. Dead silence. Everyone staring at each other. Then the big guy who'd been questioning him the hardest gritted his teeth, cursed under his breath, hoisted the unconscious chief onto his back, and said, "Fine. One last time. But if he's lying, I'm shoving an apple pie so far up his." They ran into the forest. Seconds after they vanished into the trees, hoofbeats thundered into the village. Sir Kyle and his knights arrived, with Hams riding beside them. Hams saw the empty village and his heart unclenched just a tiny bit. He jumped at the chance. "Sir, I've been away too long." Maybe the village was already empty. The ones we met on the road might have been everyone. Kyle said nothing. His knights dismounted and searched. One came back. "Sir, the hearth is still warm. Food in the pot just cooled. They left minutes ago." Kyle turned to Hams with that eternally gentle, skin-crawling smile. "Where do you think they went, Hams?" Hams's heart nearly stopped. He knew the only threat to the village was the forest. So the villagers must have fled away from it, toward Iron Fortress. But he pointed toward the forest anyway. Probably. Into Deadbone Forest. Kyle smiled wider. He saw right through the lie, but let it slide. A few survivors stumbling out of the forest later, traumatized and telling their story to the Empire? That was actually more useful than corpses. Living witnesses make better propaganda. And Hams. A future honorary knight. A tiny favor, freely given. Cost nothing. Clean this up. The knights tossed some medals bearing the Holy Theocracy's insignia into the mud, more planted evidence. Then a torch flew into a thatched roof. The whole village erupted in flames. Black smoke clawed at the sky. Kyle turned his horse toward the forest. Leisurely, unhurried, like a man on a morning ride. Meanwhile, deep in my forest, I was in the middle of yanking another idiot skeleton out of a foundation pit. This genius had decided to test the ground's hardness using his own skull as a measuring instrument. Where is your safety officer? Did he teach you to quality test with your face? Then 2 soul messages hit me simultaneously. From Pride, Sovereign. 13 pathetic life forms have entered your domain. From Wrath, Sovereign. Cavalry approaching. Let me turn the stinky humans into beautiful skeletons. Please, villagers and cavalry, coming into MY Forest at the same time? That's not a coincidence. That's a hunt. But here's the thing they don't know. While they were busy playing their little political murder game, I've been busy. My army crossed 1200. The energy feedback from that milestone pushed me to Tier 3. I got a new naming slot and a brand new passive ability. If the king lives, the army never dies. As long as I exist, every single one of my soldiers will eventually resurrect even if their soul fire goes out. I am now a one-man respawn server. Infinite continues. I straightened up slowly. My soul fire blazed. Silence. Every skeleton in the forest froze. Mid-swing, mid-dig, mid-carrying. Hundreds of skulls turned toward me in perfect unison. Out on the perimeter, Pride's army dissolved into the shadows between the trees. Wrath's cavalry pulled their bone horses to a silent halt, even the soul fire breath from the horses dimming to nothing. The entire Deadbone forest went dead still. 1200 units, not a single sound. All waiting for one voice. Mine. All units. Cease operations. Hide. I walked over to my wooden throne, a glorified tree stump with delusions of grandeur, and sat down. Crossed my legs. Leaned back like a king in his castle. I spread my consciousness across the forest, seeing through hundreds of eye sockets simultaneously. Through one set of eyes. The villagers, stumbling through the undergrowth. The big guy carrying the unconscious chief. A mother clutching her shivering child. Terrified. Desperate. Through another set. Kyle and his knights, riding into MY Forest at a leisurely trot. That fake compassionate smile still plastered on his perfect face. Not a care in the world. I tapped my finger bones on the armrest of my throne. Click, click, click. Well. The whole cast has arrived. Welcome to MY World. Now let's see what kind of show you're planning to put on. I leaned back on my throne, 1200 invisible soldiers surrounding 2 groups of humans who had absolutely no idea what they'd just walked into. The angry village flower guy who chased me on day 1. He was trying to protect me from these people. And these people just walked into the lair of the thing they should have been afraid of all along. Funny how the world works. The villagers stopped running. Of course they stopped running. They made a campfire. In MY Forest, these people lit a bonfire and sat around sharing snacks like they were on a camping trip. The smoke went straight up like a giant arrow saying, "Hey murderers, we're right here." Through my skeleton scout's eyes, I watched Kyle spot the smoke. Even he looked annoyed. His face twitched like, "Are you serious right now?" Hams was internally screaming. The guy had pointed the knights toward the forest specifically to save the villagers, and these beautiful idiots were practically sending up fireworks. Kyle's cavalry charged toward the smoke. The villagers saw them coming and scattered like rabbits. Classic. Then Kyle gave the order, "Leave no one alive." A knight raised his sword over a mother clutching her baby. The blade came down in a gleaming arc, and Pride's bone hand punched through the dirt and grabbed the horse's ankle. Crash. Horse went down. Knight went flying. One-armed skeleton rose from the earth like a horror movie protagonist, dusted himself off, looked at the baby, looked at the knight. His greatsword materialized in his hand, 2 meters of barbed bone death. He appeared behind the knight before the guy could even process what happened. Next thing that knight saw was his own body. From the outside, Pride's voice dripped with contempt. Insects who don't even understand sustainable development dare to set foot in the Sovereign's domain. That line was a little dramatic, but I'll allow it. He learned from the best. This was my cue. Through Envy's eagle eyes, I'd already confirmed the situation. The strongest guy was only Tier 2. The rest were cannon fodder. Time to drop the curtain. Skeletons emerged everywhere. From the ground. From behind trees. From the shadows of the canopy above. Hundreds of them. Bone swords drawn. Bone shields raised. Soul fires burning with identical cold light. The entire area sealed shut, like a trap snapping closed. Kyle's face finally changed. Mr. Compassionate Smile was not smiling anymore. I could practically hear his brain short-circuiting. Why are there so many ranked skeletons here? Where did they come from? Shouldn't the Night Orders have wiped them out? And then he felt it. Several auras that were way above Tier 2. Tier 3. Multiple Tier 3s. In a random backwater forest that shouldn't have anything stronger than wild newborn skeletons. Welcome to MY neighborhood, buddy. Hems didn't even hesitate. The second he saw my army, he whipped his horse around and bolted back the way he came. Full sprint. Zero loyalty to Kyle. Honestly. Respect. Smart man. Kyle saw Hems run and snapped back to commander mode. Retreat. Break through. Too late. Wrath and his Bone Cavalry Division were already blocking the exit. Black bone armor gleaming, lance at the ready, a wall of skeletal horsemen standing between them and freedom. Wrath dispatched a single regular skeleton cavalry unit to chase down Hems. Just one, because that's all it would take. Kyle, to his credit, pulled himself together fast. He gathered his scattered knights into a tight, charging formation. One last desperate push. For the Empire. Charge. They hit my skeleton wall like a steel fist punching through paper. Their swords cut through Tier 1 skeletons easily. Bones shattered. Bodies collapsed. And then those bodies reassembled and stood right back up. If the king lives, the army never dies. My Tier 3 domain ability. As long as I exist, my soldiers are immortal. Kill them, and they come back. Smash them to pieces, and they click back together. My army is an infinite respawn loop. A video game with no death penalty. The knights started to panic. Every skeleton they destroyed just got up again. And worse, every knight that fell got hit with undead revival. Their dead comrades stood back up with soul fire in their eyes, turned around, and started attacking their former friends. Imagine fighting an enemy where your casualties become their reinforcements. Your army shrinks while theirs grows. With every swing of your sword, you're making the wall thicker. The despair spread through their ranks like a disease. Kyle knew he had to end this fast. Kill the leader, break the army. He locked onto Pride, the one-armed skeleton doing all the revivals. Hiya! Kyle channeled his combat aura and rocketed toward Pride like a guided missile. His knight's longsword traced a vicious arc aimed straight at Pride's skull. Pride tilted his head slightly to the side. The fully powered Tier 2 attack whiffed past him like a gentle breeze. If I hadn't ordered Pride to capture this guy alive, he'd already be bone fragments. Kyle pivoted instantly, flipping his grip and smashing the pommel toward Pride's ribs. Fast adaptation. Decent technique. Pride's response. He kicked him. One bone foot, moving several times faster than Kyle could track, planted itself directly in his side. Boom. Kyle flew sideways like a cannonball and slammed into a tree trunk. His fancy shining armor now had a perfect footprint dented into it. He coughed up blood, used his sword as a crutch, barely staying on his feet. Fight over. Completely one-sided. Not even close. Pride raised his one arm and waved it dismissively. Every remaining knight except Kyle and his 2 Tier 1 bodyguards got swarmed. The screaming lasted about 3 seconds. Then silence. Then those knights stood back up. Soul fire burning. New uniforms, bone white. Walking calmly into my formation like they'd always been there. Kyle watched his comrades, the men he'd ridden with, fought with, committed atrocities with, stand up as my soldiers. His brain was buffering. Blue screen of death behind those eyes. Him and 2 bodyguards. That's all that was left. 3 living humans in a sea of over 1,000 skeletons. I tapped my finger bones on my throne, deep in the forest, watching everything through 1,000 pairs of empty eye sockets. 3 prisoners. 1 fake holy knight with blood on his hands and secrets in his head. This is going to be a very informative conversation. My boys dragged the 3 prisoners in like carrying wet chickens and dumped them at the foot of my throne. The 13 villagers came next, herded by skeleton escorts. They were shaking so hard I could hear their teeth rattling from here. When they saw my base, hundreds of skeletons building houses, digging foundations, carrying lumber like a giant undead construction company, their brains completely short-circuited. And when they looked at me, sitting on my glorified tree stump throne with my legs crossed, tapping my finger bones on the armrest, I could feel their knees buckling. Something about hitting tier 3 made my presence absolutely terrifying to living things. I wasn't even trying. I was just sitting here vibing. Oh, and huge upgrade. My soul fire evolved enough that I can actually talk now. No more clacking my jaw like a broken puppet. Real words. Clear pronunciation. I finally have a voice. I used it immediately. Tell me everything I want to know. My voice wasn't loud, but it carried this death energy resonance that drilled straight into everyone's ears. Very dramatic. Very sovereign. This is your only way out alive. Sir Kyle, that fake smiling snake, dragged himself up from the dirt, spat blood, grabbed his sword handle. Still had that boot print dented into his chest armor. Vile undead. You think an Imperial Knight would tell a life-defiling monster anything? I tilted my head. Brave. Admirable, even. But also extremely stupid. I didn't even bother responding. Just waved my hand. Lust stepped forward. She walked up to Kyle with the casual interest of a cat examining a mouse. An invisible wave of psychic energy pulsed outward, making every living person in the area dizzy. The Empire will avenge me. Iron Fortress will roar for my blood. 2 skeleton soldiers grabbed the still screaming Kyle and dragged him into my beautiful, ugly cabin. One blood-curdling shriek pierced the air. Then silence. Outside, the 2 remaining bodyguard knights and 13 villagers went white as sheets. Printer paper white. Ghost white. Whiter than my bones white. Now then, your turn. Thud. Thud. Both bodyguards hit the ground so fast their kneecaps probably cracked. Foreheads pressed flat into the dirt. My lord. Supreme Sovereign. We'll submit. We'll tell you everything. We'll serve you. Just please spare our lives. Excellent. I appreciate efficiency. I started the interrogation. How strong is your army compared to the rest of this world? And explain your power system. A guy named Royd practically screamed the answers at me. We're Iron Fortress's cavalry unit. In the whole Audrey Empire, we're only average local militia. But in Iron Fortress, we're the Lord's only cavalry, so we're kind of important locally. We cultivate battle aura through meditation and physical training. I'm Tier 1 Apprentice Knight. Rosen 2. Kyle was Tier 2 Formal Knight. My finger tapping stopped. The strongest? The strongest we know is Iron Fortress's Lord, Viscount Andrew. He's Tier 3. Rosen jumped in before Royd could continue, terrified of being seen as less useful. But there are rumors that the Imperial Capital's Royal Knight Order has Tier 6 monsters. That's just rumors, though. What we know for sure is the Emperor's personal Lionheart Guard. They're all Tier 5. Every single one. My soul fire flickered thoughtfully. So Iron Fortress's Lord is Tier 3. Same level as my generals. Not threatening. Imperial Capital has Tier 5, possibly Tier 6. That's threatening. But also far away. Good intel. Very good intel. From today, you live here in my undead empire. Your job is to teach my citizens everything about your world. History, geography, politics, common knowledge, all of it. I let my voice drop to sub-zero. And if I catch you sneaking in any lies or hidden agendas, I hear every word. They trembled so violently it looked like they were vibrating. 2 humans staring at a skeleton and realizing this thing was smarter than any undead had any right to be. Smarter than most humans they'd met. Yes. Royd, at your service. Yes. Rosen, at your service. Foreheads back on the ground. Thunk thunk. I turned to the villagers. Any of you have useful skills? Awkward silence. Eyes darting. Finally, a stocky guy stepped forward, voice barely above a whisper. Lord. I'm Paul. I'm a blacksmith. But I'm terrible. I can only make hoes and nails. Perfect. I waved my hand. 10 skeleton soldiers stopped carrying lumber, marched over, and lined up in a row in front of Paul. 10 skeletons, each taller than him, holding bone swords, staring with empty eye sockets. These are your apprentices. Teach them to forge metal. Paul looked at 10 armed skeletons who could snap him like a twig. His knees wobbled. His brain was clearly screaming. What if they kill me after I'm done teaching? But then the survival math kicked in. This was his only chance. He took a deep breath, copied the bodyguard's kneeling posture, badly, and managed. Blacksmith Paul. At your service. Good. The rest of you farming. Teach my people how to plow fields, plant seeds, irrigate crops. Everything. The remaining villagers figured, hey, this skeleton did technically save us from the murder knights. And he hasn't killed anyone who cooperated. Not the worst boss we could have. One by one, they knelt. Take them away. Find them empty cabins. Skeleton soldiers herded my new technical consultants toward the residential area. The Undead Empire just acquired an HR department, an R&D division, and an agriculture ministry, all in one day. Meanwhile, on the edge of the forest, Hams was riding for his life. That one skeleton cavalry unit I sent was chasing him through the trees like a white ghost, hoofbeats steady and relentless. Then, right as Hams was about to lose all hope, the hoofbeats stopped. He looked back. The skeleton rider was just standing there, 100 meters behind him, not chasing, not attacking, just staring. 2 points of soul fire burning through the darkness, locked directly onto his eyes. I'd given the order to let him go. A traumatized survivor running back to Iron Fortress, babbling about an undead army? That's free advertising. That's a warning shot. Ham stared at those burning eyes, and something inside him broke. He later decided that if being a knight meant facing things like us, he'd rather be a dirt farmer for the rest of his life. The skeleton rider turned and trotted away, master's orders above all else. And Hams collapsed onto his horse like a wet noodle, riding toward a future where he'd never hold a sword with steady hands again. Back on my throne, I stood up and blasted my will across the entire forest. All units, return to base. I have an announcement. The Undead Empire has intelligence assets, human teachers, a blacksmith, farmers, and 1,200 soldiers. Day 1 of being a proper nation? Going great. 2,000 skeletons, filling every inch of my valley. A sea of white bones stretching from wall to wall. Over half of them Tier 2, glowing with that polished energy sheen. This army could wipe small countries off the map. And they were all staring at me, sitting on my tree stump throne with my legs crossed, waiting for orders. Time to turn this circus into a real nation. First order of business, what you call me. I shifted on my throne. From now on, it's Lord or my Lord. That's it, because Undead Sovereign is basically painting a target on my forehead that says, Final Boss, please form raid party. No thank you. Lord is simple, clean, understated. Doesn't scream, come kill me for epic loot. My 6 generals' soul fires went crazy. They were interpreting this as some kind of profound leadership philosophy. Such humility, such confidence. To choose such a modest title shows true power, guys. I just don't want adventurers showing up. But sure, think what you want. Second, the humans living here are OFF limits. My tone went serious. Nobody touches them without my permission. Here's the thing you need to understand. They're not like you. Their heads come off. They stay dead. You lose your skull. You pick it up and click it back on. Their soul fire goes out. Game over. Forever. They are one-use items, and I need the knowledge stored in their brains. Clear. Yes, Lord. 2,000 soul fires flickered in perfect sync. That feeling of absolute obedience? Better than any massage I'll never be able to feel. Third, this territory is now officially named Eternal Night Domain. Eternal Night. The realm of the dead. The kingdom that never sleeps. Because we literally can't sleep. Well, I fake sleep, but that's different. Now, I hereby convene the second Eternal Night Awards ceremony. I stood up from my throne and started pointing. Pride. The Tier 3 Berserker stepped forward. His bloodlust aura was so intense the nearby Tier 1 skeleton's soul fires were flickering like candles in a hurricane. He knelt. The most violent skeleton in existence, kneeling like a humble servant. You are hereby appointed General of the Punisher Corps. Command. 200 Tier 2 skeleton swordsmen. Everything for my lord. 200 of my sharpest, most aggressive swordsmen marched out and formed a murderous rectangle behind him. The vibes were lethal. Wrath. The Black Knight rode forward on his bone warhorse. Its hooves scorched the earth black with soul fire. Show off. General of the Fearless Charge Corps. Command. 200 skeleton cavalry. Your will is my purpose. 200 bone horsemen thundered into formation behind him. The ground literally shook. Lust. The skeleton mage glided forward. General of the Arcane Corps. 300 Tier 2 soldiers, plus that Tier 3 mage we captured as your vice commander. Your wisdom shall illuminate the eternal night. Fancy words. I like it. 300 of my most mentally sharp skeletons joined her ranks, already curiously sizing up their new boss. Gluttony. The walking bone fortress stepped forward and the ground trembled. General of the Divine Shield Corps. 300 Tier 2 soldiers. Yes, 300 of my absolute chunkiest skeletons lined up behind him. A wall of bone that nothing was getting through. Ever. Envy, the silent sniper, materialized at the front like a shadow. General of the Annihilation Corps. 150 Tier 2 skeleton archers. All things exist beneath your gaze. His voice was barely a whisper, but crystal clear through the soul link. 150 archers assembled behind him, eyes cold and focused. Every single one a trained killer. Last one, the quiet one. Greed. The ghoul stepped forward. Actual flesh on his bones. The only one of my generals who looked somewhat alive. You are hereby appointed Secretary of State of Eternal Night. Command of the State Corps. 50 Tier 2 soldiers and 800 Tier 1 soldiers. Every other general's soul fire spiked. 850 units? That's bigger than anyone else's army. And Secretary of State? What kind of title is that? I ignored their confusion. The 50 Tier 2 soldiers are safety officers. They supervise all construction, standards, safety, progress. I promoted a dozen standout soldiers to centurions across all 6 corps. Boom, middle management established. Chain of command, complete. Additionally, Greed will send 200 Tier 1 soldiers to the human settlement to learn farming. Greed handles all personnel assignments. Greed bowed deeply. Your will shall be executed with maximum efficiency. He was already mentally calculating land allocation, tool distribution, and crop rotation. This guy was born for bureaucracy. I surveyed my 6 divisions. Punishers, cavalry, mages, shields, archers, state affairs, centurions in every unit. A real organizational chart. Then I dropped the bombshell. Final order. All centurions and above, including all 6 generals, must spend time every day at the human camp learning their language, writing, and general knowledge about this world. Dead silence. Dismissed. I turned and walked into my palace, leaving behind 6 generals whose soul fires were having absolute meltdowns. The moment I left, they huddled up for an emergency meeting. Through the soul link, I could hear everything. And oh boy, their interpretations of my "go learn from humans" order were priceless. Wrath went first, predictably furious. Learn? From those fragile meat bags that break when you poke them? I don't understand. Envy, the cold intellectual, fool. The Lord doesn't need us to learn common knowledge. This is reconnaissance. He wants us to study their anatomy, their fears, their weaknesses, the range of motion in every joint. This is to make us more efficient killers. Lust, the manipulator. Too small-minded, envy. Language is the vessel of thought. Writing is the foundation of civilization. Master these, and we can control their very souls. Make them willingly serve eternal night. Far superior to ruling through fear alone. Gluttony, the simple one. Learn how to make them grow fatter. Fatter humans make better raw material for creating more of us. Pride, the zealot. You're all missing the point. The Lord wants us to go witness their pathetic civilization firsthand, to see how laughable their so-called knowledge is compared to our absolute power. This is to strengthen our faith in the Lord's supremacy. 5 different interpretations. All completely wrong. All completely insane. All perfectly in character. Then they all turned to Greed. The Secretary of State. The one with the biggest army and the hardest job. His opinion mattered most. Greed looked at the construction site. Looked at the farmland being plotted out. Then, you're all wrong. 5 soul fires froze. Fighting. Killing. Domination. Those are tools, not goals. The Lord doesn't want a military. He wants an empire. Self-sustaining. Self-developing. Infinitely expandable. Construction is for survival. Agriculture is for energy. And learning? Learning is for replication. Copy their technology. Understand their society. Then build an undead civilization that's 10,000 times more efficient. That is the Lord's true ambition. We aren't his army. We're components of a machine. And I'm the one who keeps it running. He doesn't want us to look down at humans. He wants us to surpass them. Dead silence. Then all 5 generals had simultaneous epiphanies. The Lord's wisdom is unfathomable. We were blind. We pledge everything to eternal night's rise. 6 waves of fanatical loyalty surged toward my ugly little cabin. And inside that cabin, lying in my coffin bed with my legs crossed, I was thinking about a very important question. Should I have them learn potatoes first, or corn? Meanwhile, in the world of people who still have skin, Hems rode into Iron Fortress looking like he'd been dragged through a swamp by an angry bear. The gate guards barely recognized him. One of them cracked a joke about mud wrestling with wild boars. Hems just stared through him with the 1,000-yard gaze of a man who'd watched his colleagues get recycled into skeleton soldiers. Inside the city, everything was painfully normal. Merchants yelling about their wares. Blacksmiths hammering. Fresh bread smell wafting from bakeries. Kids playing in the alleys, whacking each other with sticks. I'm an Imperial Knight. I shall slay you, Dark Lord. Know you're the Dark Lord. Take my dark magic attack. One kid stabbed the other with a wooden sword. The Dark Lord dramatically fell over. They both laughed. Hems watched this, and his hand went white-knuckle on his sword. Because he knew. Those kids were playing pretend about something that was very real and very close, and absolutely nobody in this city had any idea. He went straight to the Lord's manor, got ushered into a fancy room with thick carpets, animal heads on walls, and expensive incense that was desperately trying to mask the smell of Hamza's entire traumatic week. Viscount Andrew sat behind a massive oak desk, not even looking up from his paperwork. Mission done? Why didn't Kyle report in person? He's getting sloppy. Hems knelt. The mission succeeded, my lord. Deadbone Village is eliminated. Then why do you look like that? Where's Kyle? Baron Kyle is dead, sir. Hems forced the words out. We encountered an undead catastrophe in Deadbone Forest. The room went ice cold. Undead catastrophe. Andrew leaned forward, eyes sharp as knives. You know the weight of those words. Explain. Countless ranked undead. And multiple tier 3 entities. Every word drained more courage from Hamza's body. Kyle and 2 bodyguards. All killed in action. Andrew went silent. His fingers tapped the desk rhythmically. The only sound in the room besides Hamza's heavy breathing. You'd better not be lying to cover a failed mission. You know what happens. Every word is true, my lord. I saw it. They're organized. They have discipline. They set ambushes. It's not random undead. It's an army. Andrew studied his eyes for a long time. Then called his butler from the shadows, some guy named Hal who appeared from nowhere like a horror movie ghost. Andrew rattled off orders rapid fire. Send the Adventurers Guild a silver-rank scouting mission to investigate Deadbone Forest. Send soldiers to the forest edge to find Kyle's sword or family crest. Alive or dead, I need proof. If you can't find any, bring back some burnt wood and broken armor. Classic evidence fabrication. And the finale. Spread the story that Sir Kyle heroically fought theocracy invaders at Deadbone Village and died protecting Imperial citizens. Get the bards to make it sound good. This is the Earl's operation, so don't half-ass it. The butler bowed and vanished back into the shadows. Creepy efficiency. Andrew tossed a small metal badge across the desk. It slid to a stop in front of Hems. Your promised reward. Honorary knight. His voice dripped with contempt. No land. No salary. But it's enough to impress girls at the tavern and brag about for the rest of your life. He wrinkled his nose. Now leave. Your smell is overpowering my incense. Hems took the badge. Cold metal in his palm. Walked out without a word. Outside, the sun was too bright. He opened his hand and stared at the badge. Honorary knight. Earned by betraying his entire village. Paid for in the blood of people who used to share drinks with him. A little girl who begged him for candy. He went home. A small, worn 2-story house in the commoner district. Pushed open the door to the smell of cooking. You're back? A gentle voice from the kitchen. Hungry? Dinner's almost ready. Hems stood in the doorway. Said nothing. The cooking sound stopped. A young woman named Lilia walked out, still holding a kitchen knife. When she saw it was Hems, she relaxed, put the knife down. Took in his filthy clothes, his hollow eyes. She didn't ask questions. Just walked up and wrapped her arms around him, one hand slowly rubbing his back. You're home. That's what matters. Hems broke. He buried his face in her shoulder and shook. All the terror, the guilt, the horror of the past week came pouring out in silent tears that soaked through her shirt. They held each other until the kitchen started smelling like burning. Oh no! The food. They scrambled to the stove together, frantically salvaging what was now an unidentifiable charcoal sculpture. While scraping burnt remains, Hems said quietly, Lilia, if I told you an undead army is coming to destroy Iron Fortress, would you leave with me? Her hands didn't stop moving, but her voice turned dead serious. I believe every word you say, Hams. But I can't leave. Why? Sadness flickered in her eyes. I promised my father. Before he died, I promised I'd marry a knight of Iron Fortress. Someone who'd protect this city. My home is here. My memories are here. Hems opened his hand. The honorary knight badge glinted weakly in the kitchen light. Does this make me a knight? Lilia turned, looked at him with gentle eyes, and kissed him softly. Of course. You've always been my knight, Hams. He didn't say anything else. Just quietly cleaned up the burned dinner and started cooking a new one. A man with a badge he didn't earn, a title soaked in blood, a woman he couldn't save, and a secret about MY Army that nobody in this city was going to take seriously until it was way too late. Sorry, Hams. You seem like a decent guy who got dealt the worst possible hand. But I've got 1,200 skeletons learning how to farm potatoes right now, and honestly, your problems are above my pay grade. The farming education program was going exactly as well as you'd expect. One of the villagers, a hunter named Buck, now serving as Eternal Knight's agricultural consultant, was standing over a hole looking completely defeated. Because inside the hole, one of my Tier 1 skeleton soldiers was lying down. Just chilling. Perfectly positioned in the planting hole, like he was taking a nap in a coffin. Sir Skeleton, that's not how. You put the seeds in the hole, not yourself. The skeleton adjusted his position to get more comfortable. Soulfire completely calm. I'm just a little skeleton. I don't understand your words. Buck didn't dare push it. Yesterday, another villager lost his patience and yelled at his skeleton student. The skeleton bonked him on the head 3 times with a hoe handle. Not hard enough to hurt, but traumatizing enough for a lifetime of nightmares about being disciplined by a walking skeleton. Then Salvation arrived, a Tier 2 safety officer, wearing the ivory bone badge on his arm. The instant the lazy skeleton spotted his supervisor approaching, he launched out of that hole like a rocket, snatched the hoe from Buck's hands, and started clacking his jaw at the poor villager accusingly. Why didn't you dig me out sooner? I'm falling behind on my studies. The skeleton was blaming the teacher for his own nap. The audacity, the shamelessness. The safety officer didn't even acknowledge Buck. He grabbed the slacker, marched him to a specially designated patch of land. The re-education zone, I personally established, dug a skeleton-sized hole, and planted the offender vertically like a turnip. Packed the dirt tight. Just one sad skull poking out. Every other skeleton on the farm saw this, and immediately became the most dedicated agriculture students in history. Hoe angles, perfect. Seed spacing, exact. Hole depth, textbook. Not a single one dared look at a worm sideways. Buck watched a skeleton head staring blankly at the sky from its dirt prison and swallowed hard. The undead nation is truly something else. Meanwhile, in the officer education building, things were going catastrophically. Slam. A bone fist hit the table so hard it nearly split. Why do I have to give back what I took by force? Wrath, my Tier 3 skeleton knight, was having a meltdown over the concept of private property. His red soul fire was practically melting the 2 human teachers sitting across from him. Rosen and Royd, my former prisoner-turned-professors, were shaking so hard they could barely form sentences. General. It's the concept of private property. A basic rule of human society. Basic? Only the Lord has the right to claim ownership. They'd learn by now that you can never tell these generals, you should do this. You can only say, doing this benefits the Lord. That's the magic phrase. Everything has to loop back to me. If you steal someone's bread, they'll starve and hate you. If everyone steals, nobody makes bread anymore. Then everyone starves, including potential recruits for the Lord's empire. Wrath's fire flickered uncertainly. That actually made some sense. Just as the tension barely started to ease, a voice dripping with mockery came from the doorway. How pathetic. Can't even grasp something this elementary. Pride was leaning against the door frame. No class today. Just passing by. Just being himself. Hope that empty skull of yours doesn't cause problems for the Lord someday. Wrath's soul fire went from red to deep crimson. Pride. He stood up so violently his chair disintegrated beneath him. I would never trouble the Lord. But right now, I'd love to trouble you. Pride strolled in casually. His greatsword materialized in his hand. Oh, you think you can? When the Lord isn't here, I am invincible. Try me. Wrath stomped his foot, and the floor cracked open. His bone warhorse erupted from the shadows underground with a soul fire shriek. He vaulted onto its back, lance aimed at Pride's skull. Death energy boiled inside the classroom. 2 Tier 3 powerhouses about to throw down in a wooden shack. Rosen and Royd were curled up in the corner like trembling quails waiting to die. Then MY voice cut through everything like a blade. Your building is the loudest one in the entire territory. I send you to learn one thing, and it's either a hurricane or a thunderstorm in here. Every particle of killing intent in that room vanished, like someone popped a balloon with a needle. Both generals hit the floor on one knee simultaneously. Perfect synchronization. My lord. My lord. I stood in the doorway looking at the destroyed chair, the cracked floor, and 2 human teachers who were approximately 2 seconds from cardiac arrest. My soul fire was thumping. I didn't say another word. I walked in, reached out both hands, grabbed Pride by the spine and Wrath by the back of the neck, and lifted them up like 2 misbehaving kittens. 2 Tier 3 killing machines. 0 resistance. Not because they couldn't fight back, because they wouldn't dare. My will is absolute law. Even if that law says, I'm going to delete you from existence. Lord? My lord? Confused little soul fires looking up at me. I carried them outside, walked straight to the farm, past the safety officer, past all the working skeletons who stopped to stare at their supreme ruler carrying 2 generals like grocery bags. I reached the re-education zone, set them down next to the turnip skeleton. Then I dug 2 holes. Personally, my finger bones cutting through dirt like drills. Perfect dimensions. Exact depth. I picked up Wrath. Planted him. Picked up Pride. Planted him. Packed the dirt. Nice and tight. Done. 3 skeleton heads in a row, poking out of the ground in the afternoon sun. On the left, the original Tier 1 slacker, peacefully watching clouds, completely unbothered by life. In the middle, Wrath, soul fire raging, radiating pure. This is all your fault. Energy toward Pride. On the right, Pride, soul fire flickering uncertainly, apparently experiencing something resembling introspection. I looked at my masterpiece. 3 turnip skulls in a row. Nodded with satisfaction. I turned to the safety officer, who was shaking so hard his bones were rattling. Guard them. If anyone climbs out before sunset, break their legs and bury them again. Clack. That safety officer's soul fire nearly exploded from sheer pride. The Lord himself just gave him a personal mission to guard 2 generals. This was the greatest honor of his entire undead existence. He marched in front of the 3 skulls and stood at maximum attention, chest out, ready to die for this sacred duty. I walked away, back to my palace, into my coffin bed. Running a new empire is exhausting. Behind me, in the field, the 3 turnip heads had a moment. The Tier 1 skeleton on the left turned to Wrath, then to Pride. Clacked his jaw once. Clack. Hi there, new neighbors. Wrath's fire softened slightly. Hello. Pride's fire flickered. Hello. Then both generals turned to each other. Who said you could copy me? I was responding to a colleague's greeting. That has nothing to do with you. How rude. No general's dignity whatsoever. You calling me rude? I'll burn your skull to ash right now. Try it. Let's see if your fire reaches me before I crush your pathetic soul. The Tier 1 skeleton on the left ignored both of them completely. He looked up at the clouds drifting by. Being buried in the dirt. Wasn't so bad, actually. Kind of peaceful. Just a little. Embarrassing for a skeleton. Out in the world, people were coming to visit MY Forest. How exciting. First up, a guard patrol from Iron Fortress, poking around the burned ruins of Deadbone Village. Their captain, a guy named Davos, was clearly the only one with a functioning brain. He found those theocracy badges that Kyle's men had planted in the mud. Picked one up, looked at it, and his face said it all. This is the most obvious planted evidence I've ever seen. Too clean. Too convenient. These nobles do their dirty work like lazy students copying homework. But did Davos report the truth? Nope. He pocketed one badge for himself. Smart man keeping insurance. Then took another badge and reburied it to look more authentic. Pressed it into the ash with his boot heel, made it look battle-worn. Then told his men to bag the rest as evidence. This guy wasn't investigating. He was polishing the cover story. He knew exactly what happened and exactly what his boss wanted to hear. Survival skills, 10 out of 10. Then they came to MY Forest. Just the outer edge. Now, I'd already pulled all my real forces deep inside. What was left on the perimeter? A few wild skeletons I deliberately didn't bother recruiting. The yellow bone, dirt-crusted, shuffling like grandpa variety. Walking decoys. The guards smashed a few of them with their halberds. Easy kills. Fell apart like wet cardboard. This is what scared honorary knight hams. One guard snickered. Davos didn't laugh, though, because he noticed something nobody else did. It was too quiet. No animals. No birds. No bugs. A forest this size should be teeming with life. Instead, it was dead silent. Like a tomb. Because everything living had either fled or been absorbed into my army. The ecosystem wasn't empty by accident. It was empty because I cleaned it out. Davos felt it. That prickle on the back of his neck. Something watching from deep inside. That's enough. We're leaving. The Adventurers Guild can handle the deep investigation. Our job is just to give the Viscount his report. He grabbed some bone fragments from the smashed wild skeletons, wrapped them in cloth. Evidence of Kyle's brave last stand, probably, and marched his men out without looking back. Smart. Very smart. Another few hundred meters, and he would have run into my actual perimeter forces. 1,200 ranked soldiers hiding in the shadows, watching his every step through empty eye sockets. The bones his men smashed. The moment they left, those fragments silently sank into the earth and disappeared. Recycled. Back into my network. Thanks for the scraps, boys. Second group of visitors. An adventurer party called Silver Moon. 5 members, heading toward my forest on a scouting mission. Their tank, a meat mountain named Boar, was strutting around like he owned the world. This mission is too easy. Just a silver rank scouting job. I could do it solo. Their captain, Caden, was a tier 2 warrior who actually had survival instincts. Hand on sword at all times, eyes scanning everything. Their mage, Ella, was the cautious one. The commission was marked in red ink, specifically asking us to confirm tier 2 or higher undead. If we actually find one, we might not even escape alive. Boar waved her off. Tier 2? So what? 5 of us are tier 1, captain's tier 2. Even a tier 3 would have trouble with us. Oh, Boar. Sweet, naive, muscular Boar. I have 6 tier 3 generals and 1,200 soldiers. Your confidence is adorable and tragically misplaced. Their scout Finn was a quiet knife polisher who said almost nothing. Their healer, a young priestess named Arel, had forgotten to bring healing potions. Again, apparently, since the captain said, "This is the last time," and the mage muttered, "You said that last time too." A healer. Who forgets medicine? Going into undead territory. This team is a sitcom. On the road, they passed the bodies of the villagers Kyle's men had massacred. Arrows still sticking out. Dried blood everywhere. Flies buzzing. Boar glanced and looked away. Finn coldly said, "Not our mission." Arel wanted to pray for them, but stayed quiet. Caden waved them past. They all pretended they saw nothing. Adventurer survival rule. Don't ask questions about corpses with Imperial arrows in them. They were heading my way. A 5-person party with 1 tier 2 and 4 tier 1 fighters. Armed with overconfidence, and a healer who forgot her potions. Walking into MY territory. I was lying in my coffin bed when their presence registered through my perimeter scouts. 5 warm bodies approaching from the west. I didn't even sit up. Let's see how far they get before they figure out this isn't a silver rank scouting mission. It's a retirement plan. A few days later, I had visitors. The Silver Moon Adventurer Squad ran into Davos's guard patrol on the road out of the forest. Davos gave them one line. Just newborn skeletons, be careful, and kept walking. Classic, not my problem anymore, energy. Boar the tank, muscles literally bursting out of his armor, heard this and puffed up like a rooster. See? Even guards handled it. This is going to be a cakewalk for Silver Moon. Shut up, Boar. Stay alert. Captain Caden's hand never left his sword. Smart man. I like him already. He's still going to regret coming here, but I like him. They entered my forest. Now here's the thing. I left some wild skeletons on the outer perimeter deliberately. The yellow bone, dirt-covered, shuffling grandpa models. Decoys. Speed bumps. Tourist attractions. For the first few hours, Silver Moon was having the time of their lives. Boar didn't even swing his shield, just bumped into skeletons, and they fell apart. He was stepping on skulls like bubble wrap. This is it. This is the big, scary, undead threat. Their scout Finn noticed something, though. No animal tracks anywhere. Only skeleton prints. And the skeletons were wandering randomly with no pattern. That's because the real ones were all deeper inside, organized, disciplined, and very much not wandering. 2 more hours. They'd smashed maybe 80 or 100 of my decoy skeletons and were getting bored. Then Finn threw up a silent fist. Everyone froze. He parted the bushes ahead. 50 of my Tier 2 skeleton swordsmen were in the clearing, moving in formation, systematically dismantling a group of wild skeletons. White bones. Uniform bone swords. Every slash synchronized. Every block coordinated. The wild skeletons getting harvested like wheat. After the cleanup, some of the swordsmen collected the bone fragments and carried them toward my base. The rest maintained defensive positions. Professional. Disciplined. Military. Boar's cocky grin disappeared for the first time all day. 50. Tier 2. That's a small army. Finn added the terrifying observation. They're collecting bones. They have a purpose. They're not wandering. Caden's face went pale. Because he'd just realized what I already knew he'd figure out. Those 50 swordsmen weren't my army. They were a work crew. A bone collection detail. The equivalent of janitors. Retreat. Now. Good call, Caden. You might actually survive this career. They turned to leave. Quietly. Carefully. And then 50 skulls turned toward them in perfect unison. Every single head simultaneously rotating to face their hiding spot. They saw us. Run. They bolted. Boar covered the rear with his shield. The mage started chanting speed buffs. The priestess looked like she was about to cry. Standard panic formation. My swordsman gave chase. Bone feet pounding the earth in synchronized rhythm. Terrifying sound in a silent forest. But here's where it gets interesting. After about 30 minutes of running, most of my swordsmen stopped at the outer perimeter. I'd given standing orders, monitor and push intruders out. Don't pursue beyond the border. These humans were leaving. Mission accomplished. Except one swordsman kept following. Not chasing. Just maintaining distance. Walking at a steady pace behind them like a creepy bone shadow. What is it doing? The priestess whimpered. Tracking us. Or hurting us somewhere. Finn's voice was ice cold. Then Caden had what he thought was a brilliant idea. Capture it. Alive. Are you insane? The mage shrieked. It's proof. A living Tier 2 skeleton swordsman is worth more than anything we could say. We bring this back and the entire Iron Fortress goes on alert. Okay, I'll give him credit. From his perspective, this was bold tactical thinking. Bring back a specimen. Prove the threat is real. Become a hero. From MY perspective, you just kidnapped one of my employees. They set the trap perfectly, I'll admit. Finn vanished into a tree's shadow. The man was basically invisible. The other 4 kept running, slowed down as bait. When my swordsman passed Finn's tree, the scout dropped from above with a hammer aimed at the neck joint. But my boy was a Tier 2 swordsman. He didn't even look back, just ducked and counter-slashed behind him at an impossible angle. Finn barely dodged that. Then Caden and Boar rushed in from both sides. Boar's shield slammed into the swordsman's flank. Caden's sword locked around the sword hand wrist and twisted. Crack. Bone sword dropped. My soldier immediately ditched the weapon and went barehanded, grabbing for Caden's face with 5 sharp finger bones. The priestess, the one who forgot her potions, actually came through. She threw holy water on my swordsman. It sizzled and smoked on contact, slowing his movements. Then the mage jumped in with a holy water-soaked rope and tied him up like a holiday turkey. They captured Unit 108 of Punisher Corps 3rd Patrol Division and ran like their lives depended on it. Which they did. Back in my coffin bed, I was reviewing daily reports through the Soul Link. 300 cabins built. 300 guard posts established. Everything running smoothly. Then Pride's link flickered with an unusual pulse. My lord, Punisher Corps 3rd Patrol encountered 5 human life forms at the eastern perimeter. Assessment: 4 Tier 1, 1 Tier 2. Per your standing orders, we monitored and attempted to drive them away without engaging. However, the humans employed dishonorable tactics. They ambushed and captured Unit 108. I connected to Unit 108's viewpoint immediately. Bouncing, shaking, being carried on someone's shoulder. Trees flying past. Heavy breathing from the humans around him. And 108 himself? Soulfire perfectly calm. Zero panic. Zero struggle. Just sitting there in his rope cocoon, patiently waiting. His last received order before capture was simply, stand by. So he was standing by, like a good soldier. For the first time since becoming a skeleton, I felt something I hadn't felt before. Anger. Real anger. I had rules. My patrols had standing orders to monitor and push out intruders, not attack. I was being reasonable. I was being civilized. I gave them every chance to just leave, and they responded by ambushing and kidnapping one of my people. You broke the rules first. Silver Moon Squad was sprinting toward Iron Fortress right now, thinking they'd scored the intelligence coup of the century, thinking they were carrying proof that would make them heroes. They had no idea they were carrying a pair of eyes connected directly to MY consciousness. Every step they took, every word they said, every face they showed, I was watching. Through 108's calm, patient, unwavering soul fire. They weren't carrying evidence. They were carrying an invitation. 3 days march. I sat up from my coffin bed. That's all the time I needed. One pulse of will across the entire forest. Every skeleton stopped mid-swing, mid-step, mid-everything. 3,000 pairs of empty eye sockets turned toward the valley. Then 3,000 skeletons started marching home. White rivers of bone converging from every direction. Logging crews, patrol units, hunting parties, all flowing toward me like tributaries joining a flood. 6 generals materialized at my throne simultaneously. My lord, I looked down at my army. 3,200 elite skeletons filling the valley floor like fresh snow. I left 100 rookies to babysit the base. One wave of my bone hand toward Iron Fortress. We march. Meanwhile, at Iron Fortress, things were going spectacularly badly for everyone. Silver Moon Squad practically fell through the city gates. 5 exhausted adventurers and 1 skeleton wrapped in holy water rope like the world's worst birthday present. They split up. Boar and the mage Ella sprinted to the Lord's Manor. Captain Caden took Finn and the priestess to the Adventurers Guild. Carrying their trophy, the guild hall went dead silent the moment they walked in. Every mercenary, every drunk braggart, every arm-wrestling meathead, all staring at the tied-up skeleton that was still twitching against its bindings. Is that a Tier 2 skeleton swordsman? They caught one alive? That's impossible. Just killing one is a silver rank mission. Capturing one alive is peak silver at minimum. Caden ignored all of it, ran upstairs, and kicked open the guild master's door. Inside sat Gregor, guild master, peak Tier 3 berserker, scarred face, currently polishing a warhammer like a grandpa, cleaning his favorite tool. What's the emergency, Caden? Sky falling. Worse than the sky falling. Caden dumped the skeleton on the floor. We found an undead army in Deadbone Forest. At least 50 of these Tier 2 swordsmen. Organized. Disciplined. Collecting bones. And these 50 were probably just a work crew. Gregor stood up. Walked over to the skeleton. Stared at it. Then he screamed, "Idiots!" Grabbed his warhammer and smashed the skeleton's skull into powder. Soulfire snuffed out. Dead. Again. Guildmaster? What? You morons don't even know what you've done. Gregor was shaking. Actually shaking. This peak Tier 3 warrior, who could probably wrestle bears, was trembling. An army this organized means an undead lord controls them. High-level undead can sense every single soldier's location through soul links. You brought one into the city. Our position is compromised. Caden's face went the color of old milk. Undead. Lord. At that exact same moment, across town at the Lord's Manor, Viscount Andrew was having his own meltdown. Are you goblins? You absolute imbeciles. He was throwing papers at Boar and Ella like confetti. You knew something was wrong, and you brought that thing here? You want the entire city to die with you. Andrew's noble composure was completely gone. Pure hysteria. He grabbed his guards and stormed over to the guild. Gregor, your people said, he stopped mid-sentence. Because everyone in the hall was witnessing something that would haunt their nightmares forever. The skeleton, the one Gregor had personally destroyed. Skull shattered. Soul fire extinguished. Certified dead. Its finger twitched. A thread of purple light, thinner than a hair, flickered in the depths of its broken eye socket. Click, click, crack. Unit 108 stood up. Broken skull reassembling. Soul fire reigniting. It ignored the 2 Tier 3 powerhouses standing right next to it. Ignored their crushing aura completely, and lunged straight at Caden's throat with bone claws like white lightning. Watch out. Gregor moved first. Warhammer glowing white, he swung at the skeleton. Andrew drew his sword and joined instantly. 2 Tier 3 fighters. The absolute strongest combatants in Iron Fortress. Both going all out against a single Tier 2 skeleton. The fight lasted a few breaths. 108 was outclassed and got his limbs smashed to pieces. But the damage was done. Not physical damage. Psychological damage. Its soul fire was extinguished. And it came back. Andrew's voice was sandpaper dry. This breaks everything we know, Gregor whispered, wider than the skeleton itself. For all undead, soul fire is the fatal weak point. Destroy it, and they're just bones. The only exception is a lich. A lich. Andrew nearly choked. That's a tier 5 entity. The entire empire only has a handful, but even a lich's phylactery only resurrects itself. It can't give immortality to a regular skeleton soldier. This is something we've never seen before. 3 days. Deadbone Forest to Iron Fortress. 3 days. Andrew didn't say another word. He ran back to the manor and issued the highest emergency alert in Iron Fortress history. Full evacuation. Every citizen, east, toward Earl Barton's territory. Now, he wrote 8 letters to Earl Barton begging for help and sent them by the fastest messenger hawks. Then he called his wife. Take the children. Take all my wealth. Leave. Go to the Earl. His wife, a proper noble lady, grabbed his arm and refused. I won't go. Not without you. Andrew, the man who was always composed in front of his people, dropped every wall and hugged her. I'm the Lord of Iron Fortress. If I run, our family name becomes garbage. You and the children would live in shame forever. I have to stay. I don't care about honor. You're worth more than the Emperor to me. I'll die here with you, but we have children. His voice cracked. Don't be stubborn. For the children. Live. She couldn't speak anymore. Just cried into his chest, calling him an idiot between sobs, over and over. The sound echoed through empty hallways that would soon be emptier. Evacuation bells rang across the entire city. Hems heard them. Walked home to his little wooden house. Lilia was quietly polishing a picture frame, as if the chaos outside didn't exist. They're coming. Yes. They're coming. She didn't even turn around. Leave, Lilia. There's still time. I'm not leaving, Hams. Even if I'm the last person in this city. Hams smiled. Actually smiled. What are you smiling about? She shot him a look. He walked to her. Touched her cheek, gently. I forgot that I'm a knight now. Oh, I never forgot, Sir Knight. She smiled back. Lilia, do you remember when we first met? That was so long ago. Who remembers? Then remember this moment. His hand moved like lightning. A precise chop to the back of her neck. Her body went limp. He caught her before she fell. Forgive me, Lilia. He carried her out the back door, handed her to a female adventurer friend who was waiting with a horse and cart. Gave her every coin he'd ever saved. Take her to the imperial capital. Fastest route. Please. He watched the cart disappear into the flood of evacuating civilians. Then closed the door. Went inside. Pulled a sword from under his bed. The same sword he'd lost the courage to hold. He sat by the fireplace with a whetstone and started sharpening the blade. Slow, steady strokes. One after another. The coward who ran from my skeleton cavalry was getting ready to fight. I was 3 days away with 3,200 soldiers, 6 tier 3 generals, and an army that literally could not die. And in a tiny house in a city about to become a battlefield, a man with a blood-bought badge was finding his spine again. I'd respect that. If I still had a heart, I might even feel something. But I'm a skeleton, and he's between me and my answers. 3 days. Day 3. We arrived. 3 days of marching. 3,200 skeletons moving through the countryside like a white glacier. No rest stops, no bathroom breaks, no complaints about sore feet. Because we don't have muscles, bladders, or the ability to complain. Just bones hitting dirt in perfect rhythm for 72 straight hours. Undead logistics are the best logistics. Through the eyes of my forward scouts, I could see Iron Fortress growing larger on the horizon. Thick stone walls, watchtowers, flags snapping in the wind. An actual city, not some mud village. And on those walls, people. Lots of people. But the streets behind them? Empty. The whole civilian population was already streaming eastward in a long dark line of refugees. Someone had ordered an evacuation. Smart. Whoever runs this place has a brain. I could also see that the people on the walls weren't just soldiers. There were farmers with pitchforks, women with kitchen knives, kids who looked barely old enough to shave, gripping swords with white knuckles. And standing at the front, in expensive clothes blowing in the wind, was Viscount Andrew himself, the Lord of Iron Fortress. Tier 3. The guy who ordered the massacre of Deadbone Village. The guy who turned Kyle loose on innocent people to manufacture a fake war story. He was giving a speech. Through my scout's hearing, which honestly isn't great, we don't have ERS. I caught pieces of it. And I'll give credit where it's due. It was a hell of a speech. He didn't lie to them. Didn't promise victory. Didn't pretend they had a chance. He stood up there and told every single person on that wall, "We're going to die." Then he told them why they should die anyway. We're bait. We're here to buy time for the people running behind us. Every minute we hold, every step further our children get, that's our only value. Our ancestors bled to build this city. Every brick has their sweat in it. Every inch of street has their bones underneath it. When those things come, those soulless, emotionless things that don't even know what death is, when they come to take everything, what can we do? Fight. On this wall. Until our last breath. Pile our bodies so high the wall gets taller. Make them step on our guts for every inch they take. If all our lives combined by one more minute. If one more child runs 100 more steps. That is our purpose. He punched the wall so hard his knuckles bled. Didn't even flinch. We're not fighting to win. We're fighting to tell them. If you want past Iron Fortress, you climb over every single one of US. No cheering. No battle cries. Just silence. Then a sword came out of its sheath. Then another. Then dozens. An old farmer adjusted his grip on a pitchfork. A teenage guard wiped tears off his face and drew his blade. And there, in the crowd, I spotted him. Hams. The guy who ran from my cavalry. The coward who sold out his village. He was still here. Sword in hand. Not running this time. Interesting. Andrew pressed his sword against his forehead, closed his eyes, and whispered something toward the fleeing refugees I couldn't quite catch. Then he heard us. Click, 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 click. Thousands of bone feet hitting earth in perfect unison. The ground itself starting to vibrate. Every person on that wall went silent, ears straining. The sound got louder, denser. The stone bricks under their feet began to tremble. And on the horizon, a white line appeared, growing wider, growing thicker, rolling toward Iron Fortress like a tide of bone. 3,200 skeletons. 6 Tier 3 generals. 1 Tier 3 undead lords sitting comfortably somewhere in the middle of that wave, watching everything through 1,000 pairs of empty eyes. I've got to be honest. That speech almost made me feel something. Almost. But Andrew ordered the deaths of innocent villagers to start a fake war. He gave Kyle permission to slaughter women and children for political points. He handed Hams a worthless medal and sneered at him like garbage. Now he's standing on his wall, bleeding from his fist, ready to die for the people he couldn't be bothered to protect before. Redemption arc? Maybe. Too little too late? Probably. Either way, it doesn't change what's about to happen. I cracked my neck bones. Not because I needed to, just because it felt appropriately dramatic. Well then, Viscount, let's see if your wall is as tough as your words. The white line reached the edge of the plain and stopped. 3,200 skeletons, standing in perfect formation, silent, motionless, staring at Iron Fortress with 6,400 empty eye sockets, waiting for one command. Mine. I stood at the back of my army, just another skeleton in the crowd. Nothing special to look at. 3,100 killing machines stretched out in front of me like a wide ocean. No speech needed. No pep talk. No. Are you ready? Nonsense. I raised my bone hand. Flicked it forward. That was it. One gesture. Hell open for business. The Tier 3 mage, Envy's vice commander, raised his staff. A massive ball of blue soul fire swelled at the tip, so hot the air around it started warping. Then he let it fly. The fireball screamed across the morning sky like a comet and slammed into Iron Fortress's main gate. Boom. Wood splintered. Iron shrapnel sprayed everywhere. The entire gate rocked on its hinges, groaning like it was begging for mercy. Andrew was on the wall screaming. Catapults. Drop the rocks. Everything. Boulders came raining down on my army. Big ones. Crushing ones. Divine Shield Corps. Advance. Gluttony's 400 tanks lifted their massive bone shields overhead and formed a perfect tortoise formation. Boulders slammed into the shield wall. Boom, boom, boom. Smashing a few soldiers to pieces each time. Didn't matter. Their neighbors stepped into the gaps instantly. The smashed ones reassembled on the ground behind the formation and rejoined. The shield wall healed itself in real time. Annihilation Core. Suppress, Envy whispered to 350 archers. They raised their bows in perfect unison, drew, and released. A cloud of bone arrows blanketed the entire wall top. Not aiming to kill, aiming to create chaos. Screams, dropped weapons, people scrambling for cover. The rock-dropping operation fell apart immediately. Window open. Pride. Break the gate. Everything for my lord. Pride pointed his great sword at the crumbling gate, and 500 skeleton swordsmen, the Punisher Corps, my sharpest blade, launched forward like a white tidal wave. Up on the wall, Andrew watched his gate dying and made a decision. A desperate, stupid, brave decision. Abandon the walls. Everyone behind the gate. Prepare to charge. His soldiers stared at him like he'd gone insane. Charge. Against an unkillable army? With pitchforks? But they followed. Stumbled down the stairs, formed up behind the gate, weapons raised, hands shaking, listening to the sound of 500 bone swords hacking at the wood from the other side. Boom. The gate exploded inward. Dust and splinters everywhere. When the air cleared, the doorway was filled with white bone. Skeleton swordsmen pouring through like water through a broken dam. No war cries. No roaring. Just the quiet clicking of bones. For Iron Fortress, Andrew charged first. Straight into the flood. His soldiers followed, screaming, crying, swinging everything they had. I'll give the man credit. His swordsmanship was beautiful. Fast, precise, elegant. He was carving through my soldiers like a dancer, stabbing eye sockets, shattering soul fires, dismantling skeletons left and right. Completely pointless. Every skeleton he destroyed reassembled behind him. Every soul fire he extinguished reignited seconds later. He was fighting the ocean with a bucket. If the king lives, the army never dies. Then Pride showed up. The bone sea parted and my one-armed general walked toward Andrew like he was taking a stroll through a garden. His aura alone made Andrew's skin prickle with pain. Andrew, bleeding from a dozen cuts, raised his sword. Lord of Iron Fortress, Andrew Conrad Vaughn. Name yourself, Undead. Pride tilted his skull. Soulfire flickered with contempt. You don't deserve to know my name. Andrew actually laughed. Wiped blood from his lips. Before I was a lord, I was the Storm Knight of the Empire. He attacked. Fast. Skilled. His blade whistled toward Pride's throat. Pride blocked it with one arm. One-handed. Casually. What followed was technically a duel, but functionally a cat playing with a mouse. Andrew's blade work was genuinely impressive. Quick, adaptive, targeting joints and weak points. A real professional. Pride just played along, matching him blow for blow with his single arm. Big, sweeping, brutally powerful swings that forced Andrew to defend constantly. Meanwhile, Wrath's cavalry punched through the open gate behind them. 400 bone horsemen thundering down cobblestone streets. The ground shaking. Soulfire sparks flying from hooves. A white avalanche tearing through the city. And there, standing in their path, was Hams. He saw the cavalry. He saw the same skeleton horseman that had chased him through the forest. The one whose eyes he couldn't forget. His legs started shaking. Teeth chattering. Ice-cold terror flooding his chest. But he didn't run. I already abandoned my home once. His voice was barely a whisper. This time, I won't retreat, he screamed and charged. One man sprinting at 400 cavalry. Absolute lunacy. Absolute courage. The skeleton cavalryman heading toward him thought, what is this tiny creature babbling about? Didn't slow down. Lowered his lance. The lance punched through Hamza's left shoulder and lifted him off the ground. He was skewered, hanging from the weapon, body dragging as the horse kept charging. But Hams didn't let go of his sword. With his last strength, he swung at the rider's skull. Clang. Direct hit. The skeleton's head snapped sideways. Hams saw it. He'd actually connected. A grin split his bloody face. Take that, you bone freak. Know the name Hams. Honorary knight. Ha! He was flung off the lance, tumbled through the air, and crashed to the ground. The last thing he saw before his eyes closed was Lilia's smile. Okay, that one got to me. Even my soul fire felt something. Moving on. Back at the duel, Pride finally got bored. He sliced Andrew's left arm clean off at the shoulder. Blood everywhere. Andrew staggered, but didn't fall, using his sword as a crutch. He'd known the whole time. Pride had been toying with him. Multiple chances for a killing blow, all deliberately avoided. The humiliation was the point. But Andrew didn't care. His job was to buy time. Every second of this duel was another second for the refugees running east. Dignity? What's dignity worth compared to a child's life? Pride's soul fire flickered. Bored now. Is the performance over? My lord doesn't have much patience. Goodbye, little insect. Pride's aura shifted. Speed and power jumped an entire level. Andrew barely saw the blade move before his chest exploded with pain. He flew backward, crashed into his own soldiers, knocked them down like bowling pins. The Lord has fallen. We can't kill them. My leg. Someone help. Morale shattered like glass. Soldiers realized with horror that the enemy's numbers weren't shrinking. They were growing. Their own dead comrades were twitching on the ground, standing back up with soul fire in their eyes, joining my army. Every human death made me stronger. Every defender who fell became a new attacker. Andrew lay face down in a pool of his own blood, coughing red, watching his city die. He was almost gone, but not quite. He jammed his sword into a crack in the cobblestones and pulled himself upright, swaying, bleeding, one arm, half dead, and screamed, "Soldiers, charge!" That voice cut through the panic like a thunderbolt. Every survivor remembered the speech on the wall, why they stayed, what they were here for. Right. They were already dead anyway. The remaining defenders went berserk, threw away their shields, charged into my army barehanded, biting, clawing, punching bone with bleeding fists. Not fighting to win, fighting to cost me time. Pride raised his sword over Andrew for the finishing blow. Andrew looked up at him, not afraid, not angry, actually smiling, looking past Pride at his people, his suicidal, magnificent, doomed people, still fighting. He opened his mouth one last time. CHAARG. The bone sword fell. Andrew's body split open and collapsed. By the end of the day, Iron Fortress was empty. Every corner flooded with white bone. Not a single living person remained inside the walls. 20 years of one man's life work. Mud roads turned to stone. Wooden shacks turned to buildings. Hundreds growing to tens of thousands. Gone in a single day. I sat on my throne back at camp that evening, processing everything through the Soul Link recordings. The battle, the speeches, the charges, the dying. Andrew was a complicated man. He ordered the massacre that brought me here. He manufactured fake wars for political gain. He sneered at hams and treated commoners like dirt. And then he stood on his wall, told his people the honest truth, bled for them, fought for them, and died screaming for them to keep fighting. Humans are confusing. I tapped my finger bones on the armrest. Click, click, click. Iron Fortress is mine now. The refugees are running east. Earl Barton will hear about this soon. The Undead Empire just acquired its first city. And somewhere on a road heading toward the imperial capital, Lilia is unconscious in a cart, not yet knowing that the man who knocked her out just died laughing with a skeleton's lance through his shoulder. I don't have a heart. I don't have tear ducts. I don't have the biological machinery for grief. But if I did, nah. I'm a skeleton. We don't do feelings. Back to work. I've got a city to renovate. I walked through the streets of Iron Fortress after the battle, and nobody was home. I'd imagined a dozen possible post-conquest scenarios. Street fighting with holdouts. Civilians begging for mercy. Nobles surrendering with their fancy hats. Maybe a dramatic last stand in the throne room. Instead, nothing. Empty streets. Empty houses. Empty everything. The entire population had evacuated. Not even a rat left behind. Just bloodstains, broken furniture, and the faint smell of, "We left in a hurry. Am I really that scary?" I stood in the middle of a completely deserted city square, genuinely confused. I wasn't even planning to massacre anyone. I was going to try the diplomatic approach. Undead human community of shared destiny. A pilot program. Coexistence. Cultural exchange. Skeleton diplomacy. But whatever. Empty city means free real estate. I waved at Greed, and he immediately mobilized his team. Cataloging supplies, mapping buildings, assessing wall damage. His efficiency was actually terrifying. This ghoul was born to be a bureaucrat. Now here's where the real payday hit. The moment the last resistance died, a tsunami of death energy erupted from every corner of Iron Fortress. 3,000 dead defenders. Soldiers, civilians, everyone who fell. Their souls released the purest energy I'd ever felt, and it mixed with the residual soul fire from my own troops who'd been smashed and reassembled during the fight. The result? An evolution storm that swept through my entire army. My 3,000 soldiers absorbed Iron Fortress's energy and ballooned past 4,000. The dead defenders' bones joined my ranks. But the quality leap was even crazier. Every single combat unit, except 300 logistic skeletons, jumped to Tier 3. My most basic grunt soldier was now equivalent to a top-tier human knight. The cannon fodder became the elite. And my generals? Oh. Pride, Tier 4 Bone Berserker. Wrath, Tier 4 Bone Knight. Gluttony, Tier 4 Bone Colossus. Envy, Tier 4 Bone Archer. Greed, Tier 4 Vampire. He grew actual skin. And fangs. The accountant got a glow up. Lust, Tier 4 Grand Skeleton Mage. Even Lust's vice commander evolved to full mage status, and her entire 400 soldiers became Tier 3 skeleton mages. I now have a 400-strong magic division. The firepower just went nuclear. Then I remembered someone special. Unit 108. The skeleton swordsman who got kidnapped by Silver Moon Squad survived having his skull smashed by a Tier 3 guild master, resurrected in the middle of the enemy's headquarters, and fought his way through a room full of adventurers. That kind of employee deserves a promotion. I used my saved naming slot. From this day forth, I name you. Skull Sloth. Energy detonated into his tiny frame. His bones shattered and rebuilt at lightning speed. When the light faded, standing before my generals was a brand new Tier 4 Bone Assassin. You are now General of the Shadow Guard. Intelligence, reconnaissance, and personal protection. 7 generals. 7 deadly sins. Complete set. And then all of that energy, from 7 Tier 4 generals and 4,000 subordinates, came rushing back through the soul link and slammed into me. I broke through. Tier 4 Undead Sovereign. New ability unlocked. Immortal. When my soul fire is extinguished, I instantly resurrect on the spot at full power. Cooldown 1 day. An on-the-spot resurrection at peak condition? That's a guardian angel armor. A free extra life. A continue screen. But I needed to test it. For science. Everyone, step back. My entire army shuffled backward in confusion, leaving me alone in the center of the city square. I took a deep breath I couldn't actually take. Then I killed myself. Pop. My soul fire went out. My bones collapsed into a pile on the ground. Dead. The soul network cut OFF. Every single one of my 4,000 soldiers and 7 generals felt it simultaneously. Their soul fires went haywire, flickering, dimming, nearly going out. For 1,000 skeletons experiencing an existential crisis at the same moment. Pure blind panic. For exactly 1 heartbeat. Then my bones snapped back together at 100 times the speed they'd fallen apart. Standing. Complete. Soul fire burning brighter and deeper than ever. Peak condition. Confirmed. Interesting. I checked the cooldown timer on Immortal. It should say 23 hours 59 minutes remaining. It said, ready. I blinked my non-existent eyes. The skill description said, resurrect at peak condition, and peak condition apparently means all abilities fully refreshed, including the cooldown of Immortal itself. The resurrection resets ITS' own cooldown. I can die and resurrect infinitely. There is no cooldown. The cooldown refreshes on use. It's a bug, a glitch, an infinite loop of immortality. I'm actually unkillable. I had to physically force myself not to start cackling like a cartoon villain in front of my army. Maintain dignity. Maintain the sovereign aura. Don't do a victory dance. You're a skeleton. Act like it. My generals were on their knees, soul fires blazing with religious fervor. Their lord had just died and resurrected in front of them. They were witnessing what they believed was the power of a god. I mean, they weren't wrong. But here's the thing. Being literally invincible doesn't mean I should go full world destruction mode. I'm not some brainless original undead who only knows killing and consuming. I have infinite lifespan. If I turn this entire world into a dead wasteland, then what? Sit in a pile of bones for eternity? Play tic-tac-toe with greed for 10,000 years? Watch dust settle on empty ruins forever? That sounds like the most boring afterlife imaginable. And I'm already in my afterlife. No, what I want is a garden. A living, breathing, developing world full of interesting civilizations, strange cultures, and entertaining chaos. A world where things happen. Where I can sit on my throne with my legs crossed, tap my finger bones on the armrest, and watch the show. A bored god is a miserable god. The undead empire doesn't need to destroy the world. It just needs to make sure the world knows who's in charge. I looked at my army. 4,000 tier 3 soldiers, 7 tier 4 generals, 1 city, 1 unkillable sovereign, and somewhere to the east, an entire empire that was about to learn my name. But first, and this was the truly important question, I needed to figure out what to do with all these empty houses. Greed. Start converting the residential district. I want hot springs. Don't ask me how. Figure it out. My lord, skeletons cannot feel temperature. I know that. It's about the aesthetic, greed. The aesthetic, somewhere on a road heading east. A story I wasn't part of was unfolding. A carriage was rattling down a packed road, surrounded by thousands of refugees streaming away from my new property. Inside sat 14-year-old Reinhard Andreas Vaughn, Andrew's son. Across from him, his mother Lino Margarita Vaughn, a noblewoman who looked like she was heading to afternoon tea, not fleeing the destruction of everything she'd ever built. Posture perfect, hands folded, face composed, except her eyes were red and empty, staring through the window at nothing. The butler, Hal, that shadow-walking ghost of a man, reached back from the driver's seat without turning around and handed her a sealed letter. The master instructed me to deliver this after departure. Her fingers touched the envelope, flinched back, then took it. The wax seal cracking open was the loudest sound in that silent carriage. Andrew's handwriting, slightly messy, the penmanship of a man who built cities, not calligraphy. To my beloved Lino, I still remember the day we first arrived at Iron Fortress. You were wearing your finest silk dress and had to step into mud deep enough to swallow your expensive shoes. The look on your face, that undisguised disgust. I was certain you'd turn around and catch the next carriage back to the capital. But you didn't. You just frowned, lifted your skirt, and walked beside me. I was nothing then. A poor young man with a title and dreams. I couldn't fathom why a noblewoman like you would lower herself to personally teach illiterate villagers how to bow, how to eat properly, how to stand with straight backs. 20 years. You always complained the wind here was too harsh, that it would wrinkle your skin, that the food was too rough for your stomach. But I know the truth. You loved this land more than I did. Look at me, rambling about the past again. Getting old, I suppose. What I actually wanted to say, remember to eat breakfast. Your stomach condition will flare up otherwise. Eat a proper lunch. You'll need the energy to keep disciplining that brat Reinhardt, who's always making you angry. Don't eat too much at dinner. You always can't sleep when you're too full. Cover yourself with the blanket at night. Stop kicking it off like a child. There are words I always thought I had plenty of time to say. I never said them properly. I love you. I regret not saying it more. But those 3 words have been the root of every decision I've ever made. Lastly, please forget me. Live your own life. Find a man who can keep you warm by a fireplace. Someone who appreciates your beauty better than I did. Someone who actually deserves you. Andrew Conrad Vaughn. The letter slipped from her trembling fingers and floated down to the velvet carpet. And the woman who had never, in her son's entire memory, shown a single crack in her armor. The woman who would scold him for a wrinkled collar, who frowned at the slightest clink of silverware, pressed both hands over her mouth and shattered, her shoulders heaving, tears burning through her fingers, falling onto her expensive dress in dark spreading spots. Every memory hitting at once. The moonlight the night they met. His face turning red when he clumsily pinned a wildflower in her hair. 3 sleepless nights over Iron Fortress's first city plan, and the bloodshot eyes that looked up at her when she brought hot soup. The way he held newborn Reinhardt like the baby was made of glass, grinning like an idiot who'd forgotten how words worked. She'd thought goodbye was something that happened to other people. Reinhardt froze. He'd never seen his mother cry. Not once. Not ever. His first instinct was to shrink into the corner. Then he remembered something. Years ago, he'd hidden in the garden crying because he couldn't memorize the family history and his mother had scolded him. His father found him. Reinhardt expected another lecture. Instead, Andrew just patted his head and pointed at the sky. Reinhardt, when you're scared, if you only hide, your world shrinks until there's nothing left but the fear right in front of you. Look up. The stars. The mountains. The land under our feet. They're all bigger than your fear. When you fit all of that inside your heart, the fear becomes nothing. The boy looked at his mother. Crying. Broken. Alone. And understood. Father was gone. He was her world now. He scooted over slowly, wrapped his thin, still growing arms around her. Didn't say a word, just patted her back, gently, clumsily, the way he remembered his father doing. Lino went rigid for 1 second, then collapsed into her son's arms. The dam broke completely. Quiet, devastating sobs pouring out of a woman who had held everything together for 20 years. Up front, Hal's shoulders trembled once. Just once. A single murky tear traced the deep wrinkle lines on his old face and was blown away by the wind before it could fall. He cracked the whip. HY. The carriage lurched forward through the sea of refugees. Through the gap in the rear curtain, Reinhardt looked back one last time. Iron Fortress's walls were shrinking on the horizon. He could almost see his father standing alone on that wall, facing the white tide. He turned away, looked down at his mother crying in his arms, and quietly clenched his fist. Family honor. Iron Fortress's future. Words that used to mean nothing to a 14-year-old boy. They meant everything now. Look, I'm a skeleton. I don't have tear ducts. I don't have a heart. I don't have whatever gland produces the feeling of, maybe I shouldn't have done that. But somewhere in my Tier 4 soul fire, something flickered when I processed this through my network later. Andrew was my enemy. He manufactured the war that brought me to his doorstep. He was responsible for dead villagers and burned homes and planted evidence. But that letter wasn't written by a politician or a war criminal. That was written by a husband who knew he'd never see his wife again. And now a 14-year-old kid is growing up overnight because of choices I made. I tapped my finger bones on my new throne. The nice one, in the Lord's manor, way better than a tree stump. Click, click. I filed that name away. Reinhard Andreas Vaughn. I had a feeling I'd be hearing it again someday. Back at the Valley base, my farming program was entering its 5th glorious day of failure. The old village chief was leaning on a stick, watching my agricultural division with the patience of a saint and the expression of a man who had given up on life. A villager was pleading with a skeleton lying in a planting hole. Sir Skeleton, please come out. The seeds go in the hole. The wheat goes in the hole. Not you. My skeleton soldier was lying flat on his back, arms crossed over his chest, adjusting his pelvis to find the optimal dirt-hugging angle. Maximum comfort. Zero shame. A guy named Buck whispered to the chief, "It's been 5 days. They still can't learn." Yesterday, another squad planted an entire bag of hoes in the ground. Like, just buried the tools in neat rows. And they've been watering them every day, waiting for baby hoes to sprout. The chief patted his shoulder. Patience. At least they're working. And hey, nobody's tried to kill us. Fair point. My skeleton farm workers were every employer's dream and nightmare simultaneously. Infinite stamina, zero wages, absolute obedience. But the IQ of a turnip. Actually, worse than a turnip. At least a turnip knows it belongs in the ground. Meanwhile, in what Royd and Rosen had started calling the Eternal Night Royal Academy, their teaching shack, my 2 human professors were having a philosophical moment. Think we could still escape? Royd asked, grinding charcoal without looking up. Rosen's hand froze mid-stroke on the map he was drawing, leaving an accidental black line across the Audrey Empire. Escape where? Back to Iron Fortress? Andrew's bones are probably being used as kindling. The Imperial capital? You saw what those things can do. They're unkillable. We could hide inside the Emperor's toilet and they'd still find us. And then we wouldn't be teachers anymore. We'd be fertilizer. Royd slumped against the wall. Yeah. Besides, Rosen picked up his charcoal again. The job's not bad. Teach some classes, free room and board. No getting sent to die on a battlefield. Then he said something that surprised both of them. Don't you think? The skeletons are actually kind of cute. Royd's brain short-circuited. Seriously, they're so simple. Yesterday I taught one to write, and just casually said, "You're the Lord's most capable soldier." You know what happened? What? He walked around with his chest puffed out for the entire day. Every bone in his body was clicking and clacking because he was standing so straight. Like he wanted every other skeleton to know he'd been praised. Royd pictured it. A skeleton strutting around a construction site, rattling with pride because a human said something nice. He burst out laughing. Way easier than serving nobles, honestly. Now shut up and finish the lesson plans. If the Lord comes back and catches us slacking, we're going to be planted in the re-education zone next to the turnip skulls. Ha! They were laughing. Actually laughing. In the middle of an undead empire, surrounded by skeletons, serving a bone lord who could unmake them with a thought. And somehow, they were fine with it. Stockholm Syndrome? Maybe. Or maybe being a skeleton's teacher is just genuinely better than being a noble servant. Now back to me, standing on top of the tallest tower of Iron Fortress's castle, surveying my new city. Empty. Silent. Wind blowing loose papers through deserted streets. I owned an entire city with 0 residents. World's loneliest real estate mogul. Secretary of State. Greed materialized behind me without a sound. Vampire stealth upgrades were impressive. He handed me an inventory report on parchment. My lord, full asset catalog complete. No food, cloth, or weapons stockpiled. The humans took everything portable. However, the primary strategic asset is not inside the city. He pointed at the mountain behind the fortress, covered in mining scars. This fortress is called Iron Fortress because it sits on top of an entire iron ore vein. That mountain is almost pure high-grade iron ore. The previous lord barely scratched the surface. My soul fire contracted. An entire mountain of iron. Weapons, armor, tools, construction materials. The foundation of an industrial empire, just sitting there, waiting for someone with an unlimited tireless workforce to exploit it. Which is exactly what I have. But then the practical problem hit me. My main base is in the valley, hundreds of miles away through raw wilderness. I can't transport iron ore through dense forest by having skeletons carry rocks on their heads for 3 days. And then, from the depths of my past life memories, came the most profound wisdom of Chinese civilization. To get rich, first build roads. The answer was so simple, it was almost beautiful. All units except the Arcane Core remain at Iron Fortress. Assist the Secretary of State with cleanup and renovation. Arcane Core. With me, 400 Tier 3 skeleton mages formed up behind Lust and her vice commander, my magical construction battalion. We marched out of Iron Fortress heading toward the valley base. Mission: carve a road through hundreds of miles of wilderness, wide enough for heavy cargo wagons, straight as possible, connecting my 2 territories into one unified empire. Why the Mage Core? Because 400 skeletons who can reshape Earth, blast through rock, and level terrain with magic are basically a medieval corps of engineers with nuclear capabilities. To get rich, first build roads, was about to meet unlimited magical labor force. The infrastructure era of the Undead Empire has begun. And somewhere in my valley, a skeleton is still lying in a planting hole, peacefully communing with the soil, while his co-workers water a row of buried hoes. We'll get there. Eventually. Half an hour later, I was standing outside Iron Fortress's north gate with 400 Tier 3 skeleton mages in perfect formation behind me. 2 Tier 4 commanders leading them. This magical firepower could make kingdoms tremble. Today, it was going to build a road. I pointed at the overgrown, bumpy wilderness stretching toward my valley base and gave the order. Target, home base. Build me a 30-meter wide superhighway, wide enough for Wrath's entire cavalry to ride side by side. The vice commander stepped forward, raised his staff, and started barking orders through the soul network with the enthusiasm of a construction foreman who'd been waiting his whole undead life for this moment. Arcane Engineering Battalion. Commence Operation Genesis. First Squadron. Clearing Team. Ready. 100 skeleton mages stepped forward. Staffs raised. No chanting. No dramatic incantations. The Soul Network let them skip all that theatrical nonsense and go straight to boom. Grand Fireball. Coordinates locked. Carpet bombardment. 3 volleys. Fire. 100 blue fireballs screamed into the sky in perfect formation, arced through the air, and rained down on the landscape ahead. Boom, 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 boom. Explosions chained together into one continuous wall of destruction. Trees turned to charcoal. Boulders became gravel. Some random monster hiding in the grass didn't even have time to scream before it became ash. 3 volleys later, the terrain ahead was a scorched, perfectly cleared wasteland. 0 obstacles. Just blackened earth stretching for hundreds of meters. Second Squadron, terrain shaping, ready. Another 100 mages stepped up. Earth manipulation. Raise. Compress. Shape. 100 staffs touched the ground simultaneously. The earth itself started groaning. The scorched dirt began churning, rolling, moving like invisible giant hands were kneading dough. Craters filled in. Hills flattened. Loose soil got compressed to maximum density. Excess rocks squeezed themselves to the edges, forming neat roadside barriers automatically. In minutes, a 30-meter wide, perfectly level road surface appeared from nothing. Third Squadron, surface hardening ready. The third wave moved in. Rock solidification. Continuous cast. Gray-white light swept across the fresh dirt road like a wave. Everywhere it touched, soft earth turned to stone. Flat, smooth, solid stone. I walked onto it and stomped. Rock hard. Could park a tank on this. Not bad. 10 minutes. From raw wilderness to finished highway. Hundreds of meters of pristine road. You flatter us, my lord, the vice commander said humbly. This is merely standard procedure. Under your will, we can go faster. Faster? Oh, I love this guy. All units. Assembly line mode. 3 groups cycling continuously. No delays. And then it happened. The most beautiful thing I'd ever witnessed as a skeleton. Group 1's fireballs were still mid-air when Group 2 started shaping the earth behind the blast zone. Group 3 finished hardening the previous section just as Group 1 recharged and launched the next volley. 300 mages working like 3 perfectly meshed gears. An infinite loop of destruction, reshaping, and solidification. A wide, flat, dark gray highway was racing across the landscape at terrifying speed, eating through wilderness like a hungry snake. Kilometers per hour of finished road. My soul fire was grinning so hard it almost split. This is what high-tier units are worth. Forget fighting. Give me infrastructure. I could cry if I had tier ducks, which I don't. Then Lust quietly walked up beside me. My lord, while this road is impressively durable, it's also conspicuous. It will attract unwanted attention like a torch in darkness. Monsters, and worse, humans, smart girl. A perfectly flat highway appearing out of nowhere in the middle of wilderness? That's basically a giant neon sign saying, Undead Empire this way. Good point. The finishing touch is yours. Lust bowed and walked to the center of the road. She spread her arms wide. Death energy and magical power erupted from her body, forming thousands of intricate runes that sank into the road surface. Death illusion barrier. The road trembled once. Then, nothing. Looked exactly the same. But through the soul network, I could see what she'd actually done. An invisible dome of illusion magic now covered the entire highway. To anyone not in my army, this road simply didn't exist. What they'd see instead, a toxic swamp filled with poisonous fog and scattered bones. Anyone below Tier 4 who tried to walk through would get trapped in endless hallucinations. A ghost highway, invisible to everyone except us. Brilliant, Lust. Absolutely brilliant. Then I stroked my chin. An idea forming. Although, making it completely invisible seems like a waste of prime real estate. My soul fire started dancing with capitalist energy. New order. Pull 200 Tier 3 poison archers from the Annihilation Core. 100 Tier 3 skeleton knights from the Fearless Charge Core. Form 3-man squads, 2 archers, 1 knight. Station 1 squad every 2 kilometers along the highway. Lust tilted her skull, confused. My lord. What for? My soul fire was practically doing a little jig. Toll booths. We built this road with our sweat and magic. Why should anyone use it for free? From now on, any merchant caravan, mercenary band, or adventurer party that wants to travel this highway pays a toll. Standard rates. Volume discounts for regulars maybe. Loyalty program eventually. And if anyone tries to skip payment or cause trouble, my voice went cold. The highway patrol will have a very persuasive conversation with them. Lust's soul fire flickered as understanding dawned. I see. You intend to control the economic arteries of the entire Iron Fortress region through this road. My lord's strategic depth never ceases to amaze. I am in awe. Haha, it's nothing special. Just standard operating procedure. I waved my bone hand modestly while internally calculating future revenue projections. Infrastructure plus logistics plus toll collection equals passive income. Baby. The Undead Empire just entered the transportation business. I've got a ghost highway that only we can see, skeleton toll booth operators who literally cannot be bribed because they don't eat or spend money, and a 400 mage construction crew building new road faster than most nations build a single bridge. Eat your heart out, Roman Empire. Your roads took decades. Mine take hours, and they're invisible. Meanwhile, in a corner of the world I knew nothing about, another story was beginning. Lilia woke up in a bouncing carriage with a splitting headache and a very specific memory. Her boyfriend karate chopped her unconscious. She sat up, looked out the window. No iron fortress, no familiar walls, just empty wasteland flying by. A woman was driving the cart. Short hair, athletic build, leather armor. A stranger. Did Hams do this? The woman didn't turn around. Yep. Gotta say, I never thought that coward had it in him. Guess I misjudged the guy. Her name was Kayla. Black Iron rank adventurer. Tier 1. Hams had hired her to take Lilia to the Imperial capital and handed over his life savings as payment. 100 gold coins. 100 gold coins. That's several lifetimes of wealth for a common family. Every coin that former village boy had ever earned, scraped together, and hoarded. All of it, shoved into an adventurer's hands with one instruction. Get her to the capital. Fastest route. Kayla, to her credit, had standards. He offered me 50. But this job isn't worth 50 gold. I'll take 2 for the trouble. Rest is yours. Lilia didn't argue. She needed that money. She needed to survive. And then she needed to come back. Can you teach me how to fight? Kayla's hands froze on the reins. You? A woman who's never touched a sword? Forget it. Combat isn't playing house. People die. You're a woman too. I'm different. I ended up on this path because I had no other choice. You have options. Take the money. Go to the capital. Marry someone decent. Forget all of this. Teach me. Lilia's voice was quiet. But underneath, it was something hard as iron. Please. Long silence. Just wheels on dirt. Fine. But I'm only black iron rank. Tier 1. I can't teach you anything fancy. That's enough? I'll pay you. Keep your money. You'll need it later. Kayla's voice softened just a fraction. Consider it. The last annoying favor Hams asked me to do. But in exchange, you have to tell me embarrassing stories about him. I've always wondered how someone like that survived this long. Lilia's eyes burned. She whispered so quietly only the wind heard. I'll remember this kindness. That night, they camped in a forest clearing. Kayla handed her dry rations. Eat. You'll need energy. Lilia didn't eat. When do we start? Kayla raised an eyebrow mid-bite of rock-hard black bread. That eager? I don't have time. Kayla looked into Lilia's eyes. What she saw there was something she recognized immediately. Not sadness. Not grief. Hatred. All right. Kayla pulled a heavy wooden stick from the cart and tossed it to Lilia. About a meter long. Way heavier than it looked. Lesson 1 isn't how to kill. It's how to stand. She kicked Lilia's feet apart. Shoulder width. Knees bent. Center of gravity, LOW. Like this. Lilia wobbled into position. Now raise the stick. Pointed at me. Lilia obeyed. Too high. Don't lock your elbows. Relax. You're aiming at my throat, not the moon. Just holding this stance made Lilia's arms burn. Her legs started shaking within minutes. Hold it. Kayla walked away and started laying out her sleeping blanket. Until when? Until you can't. Time crawled. Sweat poured down Lilia's face, stinging her eyes. Her arms screamed. Her thigh muscles cramped. The stick felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. She wanted to quit a dozen times. But every time she closed her eyes, she imagined Hams being torn apart by undead. His laugh. His face when he touched her cheek. The chop to her neck that saved her life and broke her heart. She couldn't fall. She didn't know how long she stood there. Could have been minutes. Could have been hours. When Kayla finally said, enough, Lilia's body simply switched off. She collapsed to the ground, stick clattering beside her, gasping for air like a drowning woman. Kayla crouched next to her, offered a water skin. How do you feel? Terrible. This is just the beginning. A warrior needs a tough body and an even tougher will. You did okay tonight. At least you didn't cry and beg to stop. Your body is way too weak. 0 foundation. Starting tomorrow. Up before dawn, 20 laps around camp, 500 stick swings. Then you eat breakfast. Lilia took the water and drank deeply. Cold water hitting her empty stomach, clearing her foggy brain. Why are you helping me? Really? Kayla looked away into the dark forest. I told you. For Hams. That idiot was a coward his whole life. But at the end, he finally acted like a man. And also, something shifted in her voice. I see myself in you. The old me. Except back then, nobody offered to teach me anything. I crawled out of a pile of corpses holding a rusty knife and figured it out on my own. I don't want you going down that same road. But since you've chosen it anyway, at least let me make sure you die with some dignity. Lilia lay on the cold ground, staring at the night sky through broken branches. Every muscle in her body was screaming, but inside, calm, perfectly calm. The Lilia who lived peacefully in Iron Fortress, who polished picture frames and cooked dinner for her knight. That woman died today. What survived was something else entirely. Something built for one purpose. She closed her eyes and replayed the stance in her mind. Over and over. Center of gravity. Arms. Target. She would carve it into her body until it became instinct. Somewhere far away, I was sitting on my new throne in Iron Fortress, watching my mages build a highway at the speed of magic, completely unaware that a woman I'd never met was lying in a forest, training to come kill me. The world keeps spinning even when you're not watching. And sometimes, the most dangerous enemies are the ones you never saw coming. But that's a problem for future me. Present me has toll booths to design. Far, far away from me, in a place I had absolutely zero knowledge of, something very interesting was happening in the imperial capital. Emperor Audrey V was sitting on a stone chair, surrounded by incense smoke, listening to his court diviner deliver the worst possible news a father could hear. Your Majesty, I have seen the future. A certain future. Your only daughter, your most beloved princess, will kill you with her own hands. Most kings would have the diviner executed on the spot, or lock up the princess, or at minimum have a mild panic attack. Audrey didn't even blink. Details, at night. She holds a sword. The blade points at your heart. Your queen and your most loyal guard stand outside the door. They hear everything. Neither enters, so it wasn't just assassination. It was sanctioned assassination. His wife and bodyguard would let it happen. That meant future him had become bad enough that the people closest to him would choose his daughter's blade over his continued reign. I see. Audrey stood up and walked out. Didn't look back. Didn't ask another question. He walked through the palace. Guards saluted. Maids dropped to the floor. He acknowledged none of them. Just walked through patches of sunlight and shadow, his royal robes flickering between bright and dark. He followed the sound of a child's laughter to the garden. There she was, his 14-year-old daughter, swinging a polished wooden stick around like a maniac. No technique, no form, just pure enthusiasm and sweat-soaked golden hair stuck to her cheeks. A maid was frantically trying to stop her. Princess, please. His Majesty forbids these activities. If he finds out, I'm not scared. Father loves me the most. The maid spotted Audrey first, went white as a ghost, and collapsed to her knees. The princess froze, wooden stick in hand. The, oh no, expression of a kid caught doing exactly what they weren't supposed to do. Audrey walked over. His shadow fell across his daughter. He reached out toward her face. She squeezed her eyes shut, bracing for a scolding. A warm, dry hand landed gently on top of her head and ruffled her hair. What do you want to learn? One eye cracked open suspiciously. No anger on his face. Second eye opened, full of surprise. Then the biggest grin. I want to learn SWORDSMANSHIP. Real swords. So I can protect everyone. And protect you, father. Audrey looked into her eyes. Pure joy. Pure innocence. The eyes of a girl who couldn't imagine ever wanting to hurt him. All right. Starting tomorrow, you'll train under Ortlace. Her eyes went saucer-wide. Really? Ortlace? The commander of the Royal Knight Order? I can train with him? Go. I've promised. Thank you, father. She threw the stick at the maid, bounced off like a baby deer, and disappeared yelling. I'm telling mother the good news. The garden went quiet. The diviner was standing in the shadows of the gate. Because of course he was. You know my prophecies are never wrong. So, you're handing a weapon to the person who will kill you. You won't stop it? Won't change it. Audrey walked toward him. Slow. Steady. Why would I stop it? He stopped in front of the hooded figure. I will give her the best education, the happiest childhood, the most proper royal upbringing. I will teach her honor, responsibility, and what it means to be an empire. I will make her an excellent princess and a worthy heir. He looked toward the capital's skyline. If, after receiving all of that, she still picks up a sword and points it at my heart, then it means only one thing. I, Audrey V, have become a tyrant. Who deserves to die? A worthy heir killing a fallen king. That is the correct outcome. Why would I prevent the correct outcome from happening? The diviner went silent for a long time. You are the strangest king I have ever known. Perhaps. Audrey walked away. Ordered a guard to summon Ortlace immediately. Later, in the war room, a massive terrain map spread across a central table. Ortlace knelt before his king. Helmet off. hard jawline, gray-white hair. The man had served the crown for 57 years. Since Audrey was still a prince. Tier 6 Knight, the strongest warrior in the entire empire. Starting tomorrow, hand all-night order duties to your vice commander. Ortlace looked confused. Sire, we're preparing for the war with the theocracy. I need to. Your new assignment is teaching the princess swordsmanship. Ortlace's face froze. The princess? Everything you know. Combat techniques. Battlefield experience. Your understanding of the sword. Hold nothing back. Silence. In the kingdom's entire history, no princess had ever been trained in lethal combat. Princesses learned etiquette, art, and history, not killing. Your Majesty, with respect, the princess is of noble birth, and blades are merciless. This is an order, Ortlace. Audrey picked up a golden chess piece shaped like a king from the terrain map. I need her to learn more than swinging a sword. I need her to learn how to become a ruler. Pause. And when necessary, how to judge a ruler. Ortlace's body visibly jolted. He understood something. Or almost understood something. Either way, he didn't ask more questions. Yes, Your Majesty. He bowed deeply, put on his helmet, and left. Alone in the hall, Audrey turned the golden king piece in his fingers. He placed it back on the map at the capital's position. Then he reached out with one finger and gently pushed it over. The little golden king toppled and rolled across the sand map. Audrey stared at the fallen piece for a very long time without saying a word. Now, I knew nothing about any of this. I was busy designing toll booth aesthetics and arguing with Greed about hot spring feasibility. But somewhere in the imperial capital, an emperor just heard a prophecy that his daughter would kill him, and his response was to hire the strongest warrior in the nation to teach her how to do it properly. That is either the most insane or the most brilliant parenting strategy I've ever heard of. If I ever meet this Audrey V, I think we'd have a lot to talk about. One king who prepares his own replacement. One skeleton who can't be replaced at all. The world is getting more interesting by the day. 2 weeks of road building later, I made an interesting discovery. All my skeletons had hit Tier 3. Not just the fighters, the farmers, the builders, the ones whose biggest battle was against a potato. Turns out labor counts as growth experience. Planting crops, hammering iron, stacking logs, it all triggers evolution. My construction workers leveled up by doing chores. This is the most broken RPG system in existence. Anyway, the highway was done. Last stone hardened, last section connected, invisible illusion barrier flowing smoothly overhead. 400 mages standing behind me like statues. Perfect silence. I sent my consciousness ahead into the valley base to check on things before walking in. I should not have looked. First thing I saw, a skeleton lying peacefully in a planting hole. Again, same guy? Different guy? At this point they all do it. Arms crossed over his chest, adjusting his pelvis for maximum comfort. Buck the farmer was losing his mind. Stop lying in there. The seeds are wheat. This stuff, even if you plant yourself, you're not going to grow a litter of baby skeletons next spring. The skeleton scratched his thigh bone casually. So what? So what? The audacity. Nearby, Buck was wrestling another squad of skeletons over a bag of sprouted potatoes they were trying to boil. Stop. Those are seed potatoes. You cook them, and they're dead. The lead skeleton tilted his head with flawless logic. Food should be cooked. If we cook the seeds first, then when we dig them up later they'll already be cooked. No extra step. Efficiency. I can't even argue with that logic. It's wrong, but I can't find the flaw in his reasoning because there is no reasoning. It's just confident stupidity. The blacksmith shop was somehow worse. Paul the blacksmith was screaming like a man watching his house burn down. Use the tongs. The tongs. Don't grab the red-hot iron with your bare fingers. One skeleton apprentice was gripping a glowing iron ingot directly with his finger bones. Another was using a whetstone to sharpen the anvil. Not a sword. The anvil. He was trying to turn the anvil into a weapon. And the worst one, a skeleton had stuck his own hand into the forge fire, pulled it out, examined the color of his bones, and stuck it back in. He was using his own skeleton as a thermometer. What went wrong with my life? Paul screamed at the ceiling. In the Royal Academy, shack, my 2 professors Royd and Rosen were lying on a large animal skin comparing whose, but was bigger, laughing like idiots. They'd reached full acceptance of their absurd existence. The old village chief was doing push-ups on the ground yelling about rehabilitation training, while watching a skeleton plant itself for the 1000th time. Enough. Enough.